It all starts in a place constantly consumed by danger. People suffer from extreme starvation and violence, while armed soldiers strictly control everything without an ounce of mercy. The MC was just an ordinary soldier who ended up running completely out of ammo, right in the middle of a terrifying enemy invasion. Seeing their chance, the enemies waste no time and start unleashing an unmerciful hail of gunfire straight toward him. He gets hit by multiple shots right in the back. Without having the slightest chance to react or get away, his life comes to a sudden end, collapsing right along with his falling nation. But suddenly, a mysterious and brilliant light appears in the middle of that endless darkness, catching his attention. A giant hand glowing with divine power descends from the sky as if offering a miraculous salvation. The young man grabs the glowing hand and feels his soul being pulled far away from that awful battlefield. With that, he ends up miraculously returning to life, gaining a fresh second chance in another realm. Upon opening his eyes once more, the youth realizes he ended up in a modern world, completely different from his previous one. 3 years have already gone by since he arrived, and now he lives the normal routine of a high school student. The young man wonders if the heavens granted him this opportunity to make up for his past failed life, and today is the big day. The entire school is buzzing with excitement because the long-awaited class awakening ceremony has finally arrived. The teacher shouts with enthusiasm, ordering everyone to head to the courtyard since this moment will define the rest of their lives. In this new world, dangerous dungeons have popped up everywhere, unleashing terrifying monsters that threaten the earth. To defend themselves, humanity awakened combat classes divided into ranks ranging from rank C all the way to rank S. In this society, what truly determines your worth and your future is the class you manage to awaken. The wealthy heiress Luna has just awakened the S-rank class of Purification Saint, leaving everyone at school totally stunned, officially making her the primary waifu so far. Students whisper among themselves about how she reached an unbelievable score of 95 points in pure talent. But right after that, the crowd starts cheering loudly for the legendary Pluto, who is the true genius of the entire academy. The instructor finally calls out the young man's name, and he calmly walks toward the stage under everyone's intense gaze. As it turns out, Pluto boasts an impressive 200 talent points, holding the absolute highest record across all schools. Luna stares at him intently as he passes by her, showing that she is extremely interested in his test performance. The girl flashes a playful smile and tells him not to disappoint her, considering how much everyone expects from him. He walks right past her without uttering a single word, leaving the young lady grumbling about how he keeps remaining so quiet. The crowd goes wild, chanting Pluto's name, while the young man approaches the official awakening orb. The system instructs him to place his hand right above the glowing orb to kick off the magical evaluation process. The instructor thinks to himself with pride that having someone with 200 talent points in their academy is a true blessing. The guild representatives claim that if he secures an S rank, he will lock in a direct spot among the combat elite. The Blue Dragon Guild is simply the #1 guild in the nation, acting directly as the primary military force. Securing a spot there means guaranteed wealth alongside immense prestige that anyone would dream of having. But for the MC, the most crucial part is that this state-run guild represents the nation's true military might. He recalls how, in his past life, he was just a weak soldier from a ruined country, meeting his end like total trash. This time around, he is determined to become insanely strong to protect his homeland and rise to become the absolute greatest in the world. The orb releases a massive burst of bright blue energy so intense that all the students are completely sure an S rank is incoming. However, Pluto stands completely stunned as he looks at the energy and realizes something extremely strange is going on. Luna herself and the academy instructor wear expressions of absolute shock, unable to process what they are witnessing. The system screen reveals that the class he awakened is Necromancer, creating an incredibly awkward silence throughout the entire courtyard. A dark purple aura wraps around his body, while the entire area is taken over by a cold atmosphere of utter disappointment. The students comment in frustration that the Necromancer is considered the absolute worst C-rank class in existence. Pluto feels utterly outraged, asking himself where he went wrong to receive such a weak class after working so hard. His status panel shows very basic starting attributes and confirms that he is now officially a level 0 necromancer. The guild instructor huffs in disgust, regretting having built up such high expectations for that promising kid. To make matters worse, his initial skill only allows him to summon a single soldier per hour, making him feel completely doomed to fail. But out of nowhere, a golden system notification pops up announcing that all of his summon limits have been completely removed. The young man realizes that without this restriction, he can use his 10 mana points to instantly summon 10 soldiers at once. He begins to chuckle upon realizing that his minions will grow stronger and stronger as he continues to level up. The youth visualizes his future army of undead knights marching relentlessly forward to crush his opponents. With enough mana and 0 cap limitations, the young man now holds the power to become a true one-man army. The young man realizes that this single modification to his summoning skill is more than enough to obliterate any S-rank awakened user down the road. But his thoughts are cut short by the guild instructor who shouts impatiently, telling him to move along because the ceremony is over. Pluto finds it ridiculous how quickly everyone's attitude flipped the moment they saw he only awakened a common C-rank class. He decides to brush off everyone's contempt, knowing that with his current power, dungeons will be a total walk in the park, choosing to start grinding levels immediately. As he walks away, the other students start whispering, assuming he has finally lost his mind from being unable to cope with harsh reality. Right then, Adrian Blackwood shows up, the classic arrogant rich kid from the elite class, ready to mock and rub things in our MC's face. The jealous guy boasts about awakening an A rank and even offers Pluto a chance to become his pet just to leech some free levels. Pluto simply sighs, remembering that this guy was always openly envious of him and was constantly looking for excuses to try and surpass him. The arrogant rich kid and his classmates start laughing out loud, imagining the hilarious sight of the former school genius begging for help like a puppy. The young man simply walks right past them in silence, feeling that wasting breath on insignificant trash like them is a complete waste of time. A female voice speaks up, praising the young man's self-control for ignoring the cheap insults of those irrelevant idiots. Looking to the side, Pluto notices it is Luna, who was calmly observing the whole situation while leaning against a nearby pillar. He tells her he is in no mood for games, but the girl seems entirely sincere and expresses genuine concern for him. Then, the young heiress makes a surprising proposal, offering to personally carry him through the dungeons to hunt monsters. Pluto asks if it wouldn't be too embarrassing for her to carry a simple C rank, but she firmly denies it, not caring about that at all. She insists, stating she knows his ultimate goal is to join the Blue Dragon Guild, and that with her assistance, his odds will skyrocket. The girl enthusiastically grabs his arm, declaring that she trusts his potential because nobody with 200 talent points could ever be an ordinary necromancer. The young man smiles internally, realizing that Luna remains as sharp as ever and was the only person capable of seeing past surface appearances. He thanks her for her kindness and her generous offer to lower herself just to help him level up so quickly. But to the girl's absolute shock, the MC simply turns down the help, gently setting her hand aside with complete politeness. He states that he will join the Blue Dragon Guild on his own terms, and that if he cannot rely on a high-class status, he will carve out a different path. With his eyes glowing a mysterious shade of purple, the young man vows that he will reach a level so high it will leave every single A rank and S rank eating his dust. Right after, Pluto heads to the school's dungeon lobby, which is packed with rookies, and decides to challenge the dangerous sequential trials back-to-back. A few students watch the kid pass by, not quite understanding what a newly awakened low-ranker is planning to do there. In this trial, the monsters range from level 1 to level 5, and anyone who enters cannot back out under any circumstances, forced to win or perish trying. It is essentially a wild suicide mission that only the absolute strongest warriors dare to face, but in return, it guarantees an insane amount of experience points. The elite class teacher and several nearby students end up spotting the young man approaching that dangerous red portal. Everyone falls into sheer panic, seeing that a C rank is about to step inside, with the teacher concluding he has lost his mind and is actively seeking a death sentence. The teacher starts panicking, but Luna tries to calm her down, reassuring her that Pluto is not the type of person to make a foolish decision like that. Even so, the mentor decides to keep a close eye on the portal entrance to intervene or call for backup in case things turn ugly for him. Pluto is teleported to an isolated floating arena in the sky, which serves as the starting point for this terrifying sequential trial. The young man takes a deep breath upon realizing he is in the dungeon's safe zone, where he can prepare before the actual combat begins. He knows full well that the moment he takes a single step outside that protective barrier, there will be no turning back. Right off the bat, he spots a large pack of ferocious, level 1 void hounds growling aggressively, ready to pounce. Facing 10 monsters right on the very first floor is the exact reason why no average rookie ever dares to set foot in this trial. Without wasting a second, the young man triggers his dark magic, spending 2 points of mana to summon his very first 2 skeleton soldiers. He commands his summons to focus their attacks on the monsters leading the pack and charging straight toward them. The skeletons advance relentlessly, swinging their swords and landing precise blows against the void beasts. With his first victory secured, the young man receives 10 experience points and smiles, realizing the monsters are easy to handle with the right strategy. As the hounds push forward, he remembers how quickly he went from being the absolute center of attention to the biggest laughingstock in the entire school. He feels the weight of the mocking stares from everyone who laughed at his class, concentrating even more dark energy into his palm. The instructor's arrogant voice yelling at him to move out of the way during the ceremony still echoes annoyingly inside his mind. Determined to turn the tables, he spends more mana and summons 3 more soldiers, bringing his total active minions up to 5. Adrian's jokes about him being a C-rank failure only fuel the MC's drive to get significantly stronger. The youth also remembers the humiliating treatment he endured in his past life, when invading enemies referred to him as inferior garbage. Noticing that the people of today hold that exact same look of contempt as those from his past, he summons more undead, accumulating 8 in total. He swears to himself that he will not let history repeat itself, and that he will become the most powerful of all, no matter what it takes. Pluto consumes the rest of his remaining mana and summons the final 2 soldiers, reaching his max limit of 10 simultaneous warriors. With his small army of undead finally complete around him, the young man feels fully prepared to clear out the first floor. He coordinates his summons intelligently, sending 2 skeletons after each hound to ensure maximum efficiency in combat. The undead warriors march forward without a trace of fear, slicing through the enemies with rapid and incredibly brutal strikes. The void beasts cannot withstand the synchronized assault of the skeletons and begin falling one after another across the arena. Realizing he earns a solid amount of experience for every single kill, the young man does the math and notes he will level up much faster than anticipated. Pluto plans to use his mana regeneration downtime to fully restore his energy so he can summon even more allies. He observes his summons with a satisfied grin, knowing that in a very short time he will command a massive army of skeletons under his total control. Without wasting any time, the MC points toward the next wave of enemies and coldly commands his minions to attack with everything they have. The skeletons obey instantly, destroying any beasts that cross their path and piling up even more experience points for him. A burst of purple energy erupts around the young man, signaling that he has just leveled up at an impressive speed. He discovers that leveling up restores part of his mana, allowing him to pull off an overpowered infinite summon strategy right in the middle of battle. Knowing that his mana is his most crucial resource, he decides to dump all of his attribute points into it to maximize his total capacity. With his new point limit, the young man can now maintain up to 15 undead warriors summoned at the same time for battle. With eyes shining with total confidence, he realizes the first floor has been completely cleared, making it the perfect time to move forward. On the second floor, the opponents switch over to gray wolves, but Pluto's warriors keep destroying everything, securing even more progress. The young man keeps his guard up, remembering that his physical body is still very fragile and that a single mistake against these new monsters could prove fatal. Right then, he ends up leveling up once again, proving that this special dungeon is the absolute best place in the world to farm quick experience. Pluto increases his mana points once more, creating a flawless loop where he summons more minions to eliminate monsters even faster. As he pushes deeper into the dungeon, he runs into a herd of level 4 mud horses grazing peacefully across the landscape. One of the creatures notices his presence and lets out a heavy huff, demonstrating that it is far stronger and more aggressive than the previous ones. But to our MC, these new enemies are nothing more than easy targets, and he simply orders his warriors to take them down. The skeletons charge forward, delivering powerful strikes that effortlessly shatter the physical defense of the ground-type monsters. Another beast goes down, yielding a generous amount of experience and demonstrating the overwhelming efficiency of his combat tactics. One of his minions ends up crumbling into dust after taking a hit, but the youth does not worry one bit about this minor temporary loss. After all, resources are the one thing he has plenty of, and he simply summons 30 new skeletons all at once, covering the entire battlefield. The massive swarm of minions completely crushes the remaining mud horses, giving the dungeon creatures zero chance to react or escape. With this total annihilation, he hits level 5, and the system sends out a glowing notification announcing that a new limit breakthrough has been unlocked. This divine new upgrade allows his soldiers to absorb defeated enemies to evolve their physical forms and gain significantly more power. Essentially, any strong creature he defeats can now be integrated into his personal army as an elite undead minion. Pluto cracks a sinister smirk, realizing that his variety of troops will expand infinitely as he continues to defeat stronger foes. This completely broken ability makes him feel like the true ruler of the underworld, destined to command an unstoppable legion of resurrected monsters. He also unlocks a new class skill that allows him to transform his regular skeletons into walking bombs, capable of dealing massive area of effect damage. The young man gets hyped at the idea of using bone suicide bombers and can hardly wait to test out this new madness against the level 5 opponents. Upon reaching the final stage, he encounters terrifying level 5 beasts, shielded by an extremely thick stone carapace on their backs. Since standard swords would take far too long to cut through that tough hide, Pluto decides they are the absolute perfect guinea pigs for his new explosive units. The young man snaps his fingers to activate the skill, and the selected skeleton begins to be enveloped in vibrant orange flames of pure explosive energy. But the scene that follows is utterly hilarious, as the undead minions show up carrying giant barrels marked with red skull drawings in their hands. The MC stands there staring at this absurd sight in complete silence, not knowing exactly how to react to the totally ridiculous look of his new summons. He places a hand over his face, finding the visual way too goofy, but decides to let it slide as long as the explosion is actually powerful and destructive. The flaming skeleton runs awkwardly while clutching the heavy barrel, charging fearlessly straight toward the giant level 5 monster. The creature looks down in total confusion, completely unaware of the danger, as the bony minion places the lit bomb right in front of its snout. A colossal and deafening explosion erupts immediately after, covering the entire scene in fire and thick black smoke to devastating effect. Pluto is thoroughly impressed by the massive carnage and celebrates upon seeing the notifications confirming the instant death of all monsters in the area. He realizes he is going to need a lot more mana if he wants to spam this new explosive technique, deciding he needs to purchase better gear. Although the experience gains were fantastic, the young man regrets the fact that this special dungeon drops 0 loot or valuable gold. The youth steps through the exit portal, intending to head to the school shop, but ends up walking straight into the teacher who was waiting for him. The woman stands in complete shock seeing Pluto emerge from the portal without a single scratch, discovering he hit level 5 in just 1 hour of testing. She realizes that despite being a C rank, the kid possesses absurd power thanks to his genius-level base attributes, and she rushes off to report everything to the principal. Principal Julian Kingsley appears in his luxurious office, complaining about her rushing in while he is buried in urgent paperwork to handle today. He gets annoyed upon learning the matter involves Pluto, questioning why she would bother him over a regular C-rank student. The teacher then asks him dead seriously how strong he thinks a necromancer is if they can manage to reach level 5 in just one single hour. The principal's eyes widen in absolute disbelief, stating it would be totally impossible for a rookie necromancer to last even 5 minutes in that insane test. The teacher remains utterly intrigued, trying to figure out how a simple necromancer managed to pull off such a legendary feat. Meanwhile, Pluto discovers that magical gear is insanely expensive at the shop, realizing the best way to get items is by hunting inside dungeons. At the dungeon entrance, he sees a group of veterans stepping out completely beaten up and bruised from a high-level challenge. Even seeing the danger, the young man boldly decides to challenge the giant rhino mountain at level 5, audaciously picking the gold difficulty tier. Upon stepping inside, he is impressed by the incredible visual environment and quickly summons his loyal warriors to kick off the exploration. The young man's main objective is to defeat the dungeon boss to acquire valuable treasure that will help push his power even higher. With 35 points of mana, the MC can summon an absurd quantity of skeletons that seem to multiply without end. His army marches forward, taking on level 5 stone rhinos without suffering almost a single loss due to their sheer numbers. The massive monsters start falling easily, yielding a heavy amount of experience for our undefeated hero as he continues his streak. Suddenly, a terrifying roar echoes across the entire area, signaling the arrival of an even more powerful and aggressive creature on the field. A giant stone rhino charges furiously toward them, tearing up the ground, ready to flatten the army of undead troops. The young man notices that the physical strikes from their basic swords are doing virtually zero damage to the monster's super tough stone skin. However, Pluto is not the type to run out of options in combat, and he quickly begins concentrating a powerful explosive energy in his hands. He activates his new skill, converting one of his standard minions into a walking bomb that sprints at high speeds straight toward the monster. The violent detonation that follows instantly shatters the enemy's heavy defense, securing a quick kill and a ton of points for Pluto. The young man gets thrilled upon realizing that the stone monsters are no match for his bombs, deciding to turn his entire army into explosives. A wave of deafening explosions begins to erupt, clearing out the entire area and wiping out every rhino that dared to stand in his way. Thanks to this explosive tactic, he rapidly climbs to level 6, coming close to ranking up once again with his fresh attribute points. At that moment, a colossal shadow emerges at the end of the path, revealing the imposing figure of the giant rhino king of the gold dungeon. The colossal beast lets out a deafening roar that makes the entire mountain tremble, demonstrating why it is the feared final guardian of the floor. Pluto admits he didn't expect the dungeon boss to be so huge, but he doesn't let himself get intimidated by the enemy's massive size one bit. The young man stares coldly at the monster, knowing the colossal adversary is already inside his kill zone with zero chance of escape. He reveals that he set a flawless trap, stacking nearly 100 bomb soldiers around the beast before it could even sense the threat. The simultaneous detonation triggers an explosion of catastrophic proportions that instantly vaporizes the Rhino King and awards massive experience. The young man advances to level 7, left amazed upon seeing that the boss was pulverized before it could even execute a single move. In the middle of the defeated monster's ashes, he spots a mysterious purple glow floating in the air, signaling that a valuable treasure just dropped. It turns out to be an epic-tier giant stone staff that grants excellent defense bonuses and adds 30 extra points to his total mana pool. The MC celebrates his prize, knowing he struck absolute gold by pulling such a powerful item on his very first attempt. He recalls the academy lessons regarding item rarity scales, where purple epic items are insanely valuable and extremely hard to get. Pulling an item like this tailor-made for his mage class in his very first dungeon makes him realize his luck in this new world is completely broken. The young man knows a rare quality staff would already cost at least 100 gold coins, making his new epic item a literal fortune. With the new attributes stacked onto his extra level points, his maximum mana limit skyrockets to an unbelievable 75 points. This means that he now holds the destructive capacity to summon 75 undead soldiers all at once for combat. Upon returning to the main lobby, the young man happens to spot Adrian's group nearby, still chatting away in a super arrogant manner. The pushy rich kid notices Pluto's presence and repeats his offer, telling him he should start begging for help before he loses his patience. The MC simply stares back at him seriously and in total silence, demonstrating he has zero interest in giving that idiot playboy any attention. Adrian keeps talking trash, saying nobody wants to carry a C-rank scrub and that Pluto is just looking for a free ride. The rich kid shows off his new rare quality weapon, promising that if Pluto agrees to be his lackey, he might gain access to gear and wealth. His friends start laughing out loud and making fun of him, telling him to become Adrian's lapdog so he doesn't risk dying as a virgin failure. The girl in the group lets out a snarky laugh, commenting that even if Adrian ordered it, no woman in the world would ever want to touch the MC. Pluto calmly walks right up to the arrogant heir, warning him that he is only going to say one single thing before shutting down that annoying conversation for good. With a dark, bone-chilling glare and glowing eyes, the young man coldly tells the rich kid to go kick rocks. Adrian flies into a rage over the direct response, grabbing the MC by his collar and demanding he repeat what he just said. The girl beside them steps in, telling them both to cut it out since fighting inside the dungeon lobby is strictly forbidden and can get them locked up immediately. At the same time, the confrontation ends up drawing the attention of everyone nearby, who start gathering to watch the scene unfold right there. The Academy security guards come running over in an imposing manner, shouting to demand what on earth is going on with these kids. They ask if the two are trying to start trouble, but Adrian covers it up with a fake smile, saying they are just old friends fooling around. The guard sternly warns them that the place is not a playground and orders everyone to clear out if they aren't planning to enter an active dungeon. The heir steps away from Pluto, but makes it clear in a threatening whisper that the MC got lucky and that he will finish him off once they leave the area. Following that, the group of idiots quickly walks away, commenting that their target for today is to reach level 5 inside the dungeons. The young man thinks to himself with a dark expression that he would have taken that arrogant rich kid down right then and there if they hadn't been interrupted. The guard wearing sunglasses reassures Pluto, saying people like that are beyond saving, and tells him to call for him if he encounters any more trouble. But upon seeing the youth heading toward the portal, the guard desperately tries to warn him that the dungeon is far too dangerous for someone at a low level. The security guard's eyes suddenly widen behind his dark glasses as he notices an unbelievable detail in the MC's hands. He spots the legendary giant stone staff, and Pluto simply ignores the warning, choosing to burn his daily attempts to hunt and level up. The guard breaks into a cold sweat upon recalling that this epic item only drops from the Rhino King on gold difficulty, figuring the kid pulled off a miracle. He stands there in total disbelief, realizing that low-level kid managed to solo the terrifying giant Rhino Mountain. Meanwhile, inside the portal, Pluto marches forward alongside his loyal warriors, determined to pick up the pace to wrap up all his hunts quickly. The guard outside watches the red portal glowing intensely, confirming his suspicion that the young man genuinely selected gold mode. He thinks to himself while breaking into a cold sweat that if the kid can solo that difficulty, he just accomplished something not even S ranks could pull off. Inside the dungeon, Pluto faces the feared Stone Rhino King once more, setting up his explosive tactics to farm experience. The young man simply smirks with total confidence and defiance upon seeing the massive beast roar and bare its sharp fangs straight at him. Within seconds, the colossal creature is completely obliterated in a massive explosion, granting another quick 5,000 experience points. The colossal guardian respawns, huffing smoke and glaring at the youth with pure hatred, but Pluto stays composed, knowing his victory is absolute. The MC sarcastically remarks that these monsters never seem to learn their lesson, calmly prepping for the next attack. Another crushing detonation erupts, covering the entire area in intense flames and stone dust, while the enemies are wiped off the face of the earth. He orders his bomb summons to keep pushing forward relentlessly to clear the trial and gather all the dungeon rewards quickly. The final daily hunt is wrapped up with absolute success, leaving the young man extremely satisfied with the results achieved in that place. The panel displays a massive pile of shiny loot, and Pluto plans to sell everything later on, considering none of the gear fits his class. With all his daily attempts used up, the young man decides it is time to rest up since the crucial rookie professional evaluation is happening tomorrow. His updated panel reveals he has reached an impressive 85 mana points alongside noticeable upgrades to his defense. The next day, the courtyard of the renowned Aurora Academy is packed with students eagerly waiting for the start of the big combat exam. The crowd gossip excitedly about how the elite students managed to hit level 4 at best after spending the entire day grinding continuously. Walking past them and hearing the chatter, Pluto finds it amusing how slowly they level up compared to his own absurd rate of growth. Right then, Adrian pops up in his path with a taunting smirk, mockingly asking how the miserable life of a necromancer is going. The rich kid proudly boasts about reaching level 5 through sheer hard work, asking if Pluto finally found some charitable soul to carry him. Suddenly, the principal's voice echoes across the courtyard asking for everyone's silence, announcing the official start of the Academy's rookie professional evaluation. He explains that the top 5 students will be selected by the Blue Dragon Guild, and the first-place winner will receive an epic quality item. The students listen closely to the announcement, their eyes glowing with greed at the mere thought of securing such a rare treasure. The principal introduces the legendary elder Aaron Crowley, one of the oldest ranking officers in the guild, who possesses a nearly infinite mana pool. The instructor explains that the rules are simple. Each student will enter a chamber, and the elder will summon monsters for them to defeat within 30 minutes. Elder Crowley steps up with an intimidating blue energy aura, displaying a level of power that leaves every student in the courtyard terrified. The rookies begin complaining in terror, remembering that the elder is level 70 and that it would be impossible for them to defeat any minion of his. The bearded man calms everyone down, promising he will cap the creatures at level 1 and interrupt the test if things turn ugly. The students cheer in relief upon learning about the level cap, feeling much more confident about giving it their all during today's evaluation. Adrian takes the opportunity to taunt Pluto, saying the test will be a breeze for him. But a C-rank necromancer will struggle to even secure a single kill. The MC simply stares back at him with his glowing purple eyes, calmly replying that he is ready to play with him right now. The arrogant heir loves the challenge and proposes a bet to see who secures the higher overall ranking by the end of today's combat exam. He then breaks out into a loud laugh, finding it hilarious that a mere C rank has the nerve to compare himself to him in a bet. Adrian accepts the terms, but demands that Pluto decide what embarrassing punishment the loser of the bet will have to pay in front of everyone. The rich kid suggests the loser must crawl on all fours and bark like a dog across the entire school courtyard, and Pluto calmly accepts the deal. The principal takes the floor once again, officially declaring that the Grand Rookie Professional Evaluation at Aurora Academy begins today. The automatic doors open, and all the students begin filing into their respective testing chambers in an organized manner. The principal confirms that all students are positioned in their chambers and grants permission for the elder to begin summoning monsters. With a quick command, Elder Aaron Crowley triggers his massive glowing magic circle, revealing himself as a powerful level 75 summoner. Magical energy spreads across the rooms, teleporting the first wave of creatures straight into the arena under the watchful eyes of the students. Pluto observes the glowing blue light in the center of the room closely, gearing up to face whatever comes out of the Elder's magic circle. Several level 1 bronze soldiers armed with spears and shields materialize in front of him, ready to kick off the endurance test. The young man summons his loyal skeleton warriors, eager to test his troops' performance against the experienced Elder's metallic creations. The bronze warriors charge into the attack at high speeds, their weapons aimed straight at the MC's summons. Pluto wastes no time, quickly ordering his loyal minions to go all out against their metallic opponents. The clashing metal weapons create a deafening noise inside the testing chamber as the two forces collide brutally. The young man notices that the bronze enemies break fairly easily, though they would prove troublesome if he only had a single soldier. Outside, the elder notes with surprise that someone has already cleared 5 enemies in a matter of seconds, deciding to crank up the numbers. The MC carefully observes a fresh wave of enemies spawning out of the experienced elder's magic circle. But even with the increased number of opponents, he knows that just 5 of his warriors are more than enough to handle the job. His strategy of pairing 1 skeleton against 2 opponents keeps the combat fast-paced and fully under control. Elder Crowley stands amazed upon seeing that 10 of his bronze soldiers were instantly obliterated inside that testing chamber. Principal Kingsley is thoroughly impressed to hear the elder praising the talent of one of Aurora Academy's students. Curious to find out who the prodigy is, he immediately orders the teacher to pull up the updated leaderboard panel. Julian Kingsley stands in complete shock with his mouth wide open as he reads Pluto's name, sitting firmly at the absolute top of the exam rankings. The panel displays the MC at the top with 15 points, while the second-place contender holds a miserable score of just 5 points. The teacher remarks in surprise that the young man's score keeps climbing by the second, leaving the administration even more stunned. The scoreboard updates rapidly, showing that Pluto has already passed 20 points, pulling an absurd lead ahead of all other competitors. The principal's jaw remains on the floor, unable to fathom how that is even possible, while the teacher sarcastically asks if he believes her now. He places a hand over his face, wondering if those 200 talent points allowed the youth to break all constraints of his common C-rank class. Crowley recalls that he only had 99 points back in his day, realizing that a kid with 200 points is a true diamond in the rough. Elder Crowley then decides to give the kid a little nudge, concentrating a massive amount of blue energy to raise the trial's difficulty. Inside the room, Pluto feels that 10 enemies pose 0 threat and that the test is way easier than the giant rhino challenge. However, he is cut short by an intense blue glow erupting out of nowhere across the area, drawing his full attention. The young man gets confused as he spots a colossal number of summoning magic circles appearing all around him at the exact same time. The MC breaks into a cold sweat upon noticing the absurd density of metallic enemies about to flood his entire testing room. A massive horde materializes right in front of him, creating an absolutely insane scenario for any rookie competitor to handle. But the kid simply cracks a subtle smirk, knowing that if the enemy wants to play a numbers game, he has the perfect answer for it. He activates his magic, summoning 30 undead warriors all at once, ready to prove which army is truly the superior force. Meanwhile, inside Adrian's testing room, the elite rich kid charges forward, swinging his heavy axe against his metallic opponents. He celebrates proudly after defeating over a dozen enemies, convinced that Pluto could never hope to catch up to his mark. The youth looks back 2 years ago when he scored 77 talent points on his test, being labeled an absolute local genius. The kid thought he was the absolute best until the official test results from that year were released to the Academy students. On that day, he discovered that Pluto had achieved a historic mark of 200 talent points, leaving everyone in the room stunned. He angrily recalls how the MC instantly became the center of attention for the entire school, while he himself got completely ignored. The girls at school were constantly praising Pluto, commenting that his 200 points placed him at the absolute top of the national rankings. Even the teacher would tell all the other elite students that they needed to try their absolute hardest to keep up with the genius kid's pace. Adrian viewed being told to keep up with a poor, resourceless orphan as an absolute insult to his noble pride. After all, he is the second heir of the prestigious Blackwood family, considered one of the 3 largest and most influential clans in Aurora City. The heir shouted furiously, declaring he would never lower himself to the level of a nobody and that he would prove his superiority through sheer strength. Back in the real test, he lands heavy strikes with his destructive axe, determined to crush the bronze enemies with all his rage. Adrian grins maliciously, thinking his berserker knight class will humiliate the necromancer and make him bark like a dog for the whole school to see. He lets out a wicked laugh upon hitting 15 points, believing he has already secured an absolute victory in the bet against his rival. But in the adjacent testing room, Pluto's army of skeletons pushes forward, shredding the metallic horde and driving his score up to an incredible 79. The undead warriors attack without stopping, slicing and piercing through bronze enemies at a speed that breaks the rules of the test. The opponents spawned by the Elder keep falling in sequence under the devastating and coordinated force of our MC's troops. Pluto effortlessly hits the 100-point mark, calmly walking through the battlefield, completely dominated by his summons. The young man notices his army suffered a few losses against the Horde, but understands that casualties are inevitable when dealing with such a large group. He doesn't slow down his pace, spending more mana to replenish his troops, knowing that new bronze opponents could spawn at any second. With half of his mana spent, the kid wonders why the monster's spawn rate jumped so high and if the same thing is happening to the others. Principal Julian shouts in total disbelief upon seeing Pluto hit 100 points in half the time, easily shattering the school's old record of 97. Elder Crowley grows thoughtful, observing that 100 of his level 1 monsters were wiped out all at once, which equals a silver-ranked dungeon boss. He rests his hands on his staff with a challenging glare, thinking that insolent kid is trying to make him look weak in front of everyone else. The Elder unleashes a giant beam of blue energy from his staff, leaving Principal Kingsley terrified by the sudden surge of magical power. Elder Crowley suddenly freezes in fear, realizing he made a massive blunder, letting out a desperate whisper that things just got really bad. Right then, Principal Kingsley rushes over in concern, asking if the old man is all right or if summoning too much wiped out all his mana. But the Elder proudly claims he could summon 10,000 soldiers with a smile, prompting the principal to ask what the real reason for his panic is. Crowley confesses he got way too carried away with the kid's talent and ended up sending an absurd amount of monsters straight into his room. The experienced Elder worries the young man will end up getting slaughtered, while Pluto himself simply smiles right in the middle of all that chaos. Cornered by a literal ocean of bronze enemies, our MC wonders what on earth he did to deserve such an unfair level of overkill. He just wanted to kick back and watch his soldiers fight, but realizes he will now have to pull out his heavy artillery. Without missing a beat, the kid snaps his fingers stylishly, activating his special ability to completely transform the battlefield. He triggers the instant conversion command, causing his regular skeletons to start converting into suicide bombers. Suddenly, an entire army of undead, holding flaming barrels of gunpowder appears, ready to cause a colossal explosion. With a threatening glare, Pluto gives the final order, telling his faithful, explosive creations to blow every single adversary into dust. The bronze warriors don't even have time to react as the powder-carrying skeletons charge full speed straight at them. Outside, the principal panics upon seeing Pluto's score skyrocket, demanding the Elder cancel the test before the kid ends up dead. While panic takes over the control room, the elite teacher stares at the screen with an expression of total disbelief. She suddenly reaches out her hand, shouting for the two of them to stop talking and pay attention to the madness happening on the monitor. Principal Kingsley snaps back annoyed, saying there is no time to wait, but the teacher points at the screen in absolute shock. She insists on showing them the monitor, making it clear they need to look at the numbers shifting at an alarmingly fast pace. Pluto's score simply breaks all laws of logic, jumping from 201 points to nearly 300 in the blink of an eye. The points keep climbing non-stop like a broken counter, hitting an absurd score of 350 points. Principal Kingsley breaks into a cold sweat out of pure anxiety, wondering if that absolute monster in the testing room is really young Pluto. Elder Crowley realizes that if this prodigy is trained properly, he holds the potential to save the entire nation in the future. Julian wants to shut down the test no matter what, but Crowley decides to hold off to witness the true limit of that unbelievable power. A wave of colossal explosions shakes the entire arena, and the kid's score takes a massive leap straight up to 800 points. The gunpowder barrels keep detonating non-stop, driving the necromancer's score even higher, closing in on 1,000 points. The dust begins to clear, revealing that the Elder's powerful horde of bronze soldiers was completely shattered into raw rubble. Pluto walks calmly through the smoke, noting that a few metal enemies actually managed to survive that utter massacre. Showing zero mercy, he commands his summons to advance and finish wiping the remaining creatures out of existence. The young man holds his massive scythe, asking himself if he overdid it a bit after seeing he turned that testing room into an absolute war zone. Inside the control booth, the trio watches the sudden silence on the screen, realizing that all the carnage has finally come to an end. The white-bearded elder admits defeat, confessing in complete shock that the kid managed to exterminate every single summoned monster. The teacher celebrates the impossible feat, while the principal asks if he should bring the genius student over to the elder immediately. To everyone's surprise, the experienced Crowley turns down the request, leaving the staff pair intrigued by his cold reaction. With an extremely serious and intimidating look, the legendary elder announces he will personally make it a point to go see the young man himself. Julian tries to warn him that the entrance exam isn't over yet, but the old man simply ignores the rules and steps onto the teleportation circle. The elder says that doesn't matter, and that his sudden exit won't mess up the testing in the other active rooms across the school. He is completely fascinated, knowing that if that colossal score is real, the young man's growth potential is simply boundless. In a flash of bright light, the elder vanishes from the control room, determined to meet the greatest prodigy he has ever seen in his life. Meanwhile, in the destroyed arena, Pluto breathes a sigh of relief for wrapping up the job, dismissing his powerful army of skeletons. He reflects that taking on over 100 metal soldiers would have been a complete nightmare if not for his gunpowder explosions. But his moment of peace is short-lived, as a fresh, glowing magic circle begins forming right before his eyes. The MC observes the bright blue light, realizing that this time only a single creature is being sent into battle. His skeleton warriors react instantly to the danger, rushing to surround the intruder before he can even fully materialize. They strike with full force, but run straight into Elder Crowley, who emerges imposingly through the sparkling, magical smoke. The old man commands them to hold their attack, and the sharp, undead blades stop a millimeter from his neck without leaving a single scratch. Crowley examines the hovering skeletal soldiers up close, muttering in amazement upon confirming they are indeed necromancy summons. Pluto stands surprised by the visit from the guild's illustrious vice president, asking what on earth brought the elder to his humble chamber. The old man remarks that only C-rank necromancers summon these beings, and the youth proudly confirms that this is indeed his class. The master points out a major issue with that, since the necromancer class suffers from a harsh limitation of summoning only one creature every half hour. Since the test doesn't even last 30 minutes, Pluto breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the elder is about to figure out his big secret. Elder Crowley strikes an imposing pose with his staff, demanding to know exactly how the kid managed to field an entire army in such short time. Pluto breaks into a cold sweat, realizing his act as an average necromancer has been blown wide open, wondering if he should tell the master the whole truth. Elder Crowley tells him he doesn't need to make excuses, and that he only wants to know if this absurd power will be used responsibly to protect the nation. The kid remembers that this was the very reason he received his second chance at life, but knows he needs the approval of the prestigious guild's vice president. Pluto decides he cannot show all his cards at once, resolving to reveal only a fraction of his true summoning potential. With that, he summons one of his warriors amidst a creepy purple mist, attempting to explain how his supposed ability functions. The young man boldly lies, stating his magic has a 30-minute cooldown and that he can only summon one skeleton at a time. He adds that the maximum duration for each warrior is just 1 hour, inventing a fake cap purely to hide his true overpowered nature. However, deep down, the kid knows full well that none of these ridiculous rules apply to his completely broken necromancy system. The MC wraps up his lie by stating his summons carry 0 numerical restrictions as long as he has enough mana to spend. Elder Crowley's eyes widen in total shock as he processes the absurd concept of necromancy, completely free of any limitations. The white-bearded master grows thoughtful, trying to calculate the destruction an infinite army of that scale could unleash in actual combat. He concludes that Pluto could single-handedly command a relentless legion that requires 0 supplies, and the kid simply confirms it with a smile. Crowley realizes the young man is no ordinary promising rookie, but a true force of nature operating on a completely different level. The elder promises the guild will go all out to support his talent, stating he will speak directly with the president to secure his future. The master promises to return tomorrow and begins prepping his teleportation, while the kid stands shocked to hear mention of the president. Suddenly, the elder pauses his teleportation mid-process, leaving the kid confused as to whether there was a system glitch. But in truth, Crowley simply remembered to hand over a special gift from the guild, holding out his hand with a very mysterious golden key. The young man fixes his gaze on the gorgeous golden key, sensing from afar that the shiny object carries immensely valuable magical energy. The old master asks with a cryptic smile if the kid has ever heard of the legendary Rift of Blessing, known to only a select few. The kid replies that he read about it in his academy theory classes, recalling everything he knows about that rare location. This magical rift adjusts to the user's level, guaranteeing far more experience points and rare gear than any standard dungeon. However, getting inside is virtually impossible, as the access key features a ridiculous drop rate of just 0.1% in dungeons. The MC gulps nervously, asking in surprise if the master is truly thinking about handing over such a valuable item to him. Elder Crowley simply maintains an imposing, mysterious gaze, silently confirming that the kid genuinely deserves to receive that reward. He hands the golden relic to Pluto, granting the young man a unique chance to enter the Rift of Blessing and level up his skills rapidly. Immediately after, the powerful elder vanishes amidst an intense blue flash, leaving the youth alone in the ruined testing arena. With eyes glowing purple with pure drive, Pluto pockets the key, deciding he will head straight to that rift as soon as the test ends. Outside, the principal announces that the 30-minute time limit has expired, officially declaring the end of the exam's first phase. In a different room, Adrian Blackwood drops to his knees, completely wiped out, panting heavily from exhaustion after fighting wildly with his heavy axe. He looks at the shredded remains of the bronze soldiers around him, proud to have survived such a massive horde of monsters. The rich kid arrogantly grins, convinced that clearing 40 enemies was more than enough to lock in first place for the whole school. The Academy's PA system instructs all students to exit their rooms immediately and gather in the courtyard for the results announcement. A massive crowd of students begins gathering outside, eager and full of gossip to find out who came out on top during the evaluation. Some complain that the level 1 soldiers were way too brutal, commenting in frustration that they managed to clear very few monsters in the arena. Adrian marches proudly through the courtyard, scanning the area for the MC, wondering if the poor loser ran away out of fear of the bet. Just then, a few extras point in the young man's direction, and the rich kid spots Pluto walking calmly as if taking a casual stroll in the park. Consumed by arrogance, the young heir of the Blackwood family marches over with heavy steps, determined to begin humiliating his main rival. He grabs Pluto's jacket violently, laughing as he says his rival has a lot of nerve showing up after embarrassing himself so badly in the test. The MC doesn't even flinch at the aggression, continuing to stare at the rich kid with total indifference while clutching the key in his pocket. Adrian mockingly asks if he is ready to get down on all fours and start barking like a little dog in front of the whole school. The rich kid smirks maliciously, stating he can hardly wait to see the humiliated necromancer crawling around on the dirt floor of the courtyard. Principal Kingsley calls for silence over the microphone, announcing he will reveal the official results from the first day of rookie testing. He notes he will only announce the top 5 ranked contenders and that the rest of the students must collect their grades from their teachers. Julian announces 5th place came in with 39 points, leaving students shocked at the absurd level of the top competitors. Adrian celebrates silently, assuming his score was far superior to that and that his name will definitely shine at the top of the board. The principal reveals 4th place with 41 points, and the heir celebrates, telling Pluto to start barking, but the kid warns him the list isn't even over yet. The rich kid shouts back, claiming a necromancer could never reach the top, while the principal announces Luna Viramont in 3rd with 77 points. The girl celebrates happily, while the crowd stands in disbelief, seeing an S-rank support class manage to outperform almost every warrior. Second place lands 95 points, leaving warrior Colin Lancaster furious for missing out on taking the overall lead. Principal Julian Kingsley takes a deep breath, clearing his throat to drop the absolute biggest bombshell that Rookie Academy has ever heard in its history. Principal Kingsley shouts at the top of his lungs, revealing that the ultimate champion with an incredible 1,000 points is none other than Pluto. An absolute deafening silence washes over the entire courtyard as the students attempt to process that surreal piece of information. Immediately after, the crowd goes completely wild, commenting in total shock that the previous record was a mere 97 points. Luna stands amazed by the surreal outcome, while others recall he is a C rank with 200 talent points. Runner-up Colin starts doing the math, realizing the kid would need over 33 kills per minute to pull that off. Meanwhile, the arrogant Adrian stands completely paralyzed with fear, unable to comprehend how on earth that was even possible. His eyes tremble in pure panic upon realizing he just lost the bet in the most humiliating fashion imaginable right in front of everyone. He begins shaking, aggressively grabbing the MC, demanding answers on how that inexplicable miracle happened. Pluto simply stares back at him with absolute coldness, calmly reminding him that the rich kid lost the very challenge he proposed. The rich kid backs away in desperation, accusing the MC of cheating, while Pluto asks if he is already thinking about backing out. The students begin whispering, recalling the dog bet and laughing at the imminent humiliation of the stuck-up heir. Completely crushed and destabilized, the rich kid stumbles over his own feet, collapsing right in the middle of the school courtyard. Lying on the grass, he screams out desperately, pointing a finger and claiming it is impossible for a C-rank necromancer to pull that off. The other students tell the rich kid to stop being a sore loser and pay up on the bet he suggested in the first place. The principal steps back to the mic, announcing that the grand winner will receive epic quality gear provided directly by the guild itself. Pluto is called up to the stage, coldly remarking he won't waste time on trash, telling the rich kid to just get out of his face. The students think the MC is being way too nice for forgiving his rival, while the rich kid vows he will still surpass him. Consumed by insane rage, Adrian swears in his thoughts that he will make his rival suffer 100 times over and end his life. Our MC simply ignores the spoiled kid's empty threats, calmly continuing his walk up toward the stage. He knows full well that anyone with an immortal army and dark forces on their side doesn't need to worry about a weak knight. Sensing an overwhelming spiritual pressure, Adrian collapses back to the ground, screaming in terror at the MC's killer aura. Pluto gives one final side glare before moving forward, making it crystal clear who actually runs the show at that academy. Under the attentive and amazed eyes of every student, he walks up the steps to finally claim his well-deserved reward. The principal greets him warmly with a hand on his shoulder, congratulating the young man on his unbelievable performance in the first exam. Kingsley explains that the guild prepared 3 different elite gear options for the champion to pick his prize from. Since the kid's class was still listed as unassigned, he would have to select just one of the 3 floating relics. The young man focuses his attention on the magic items, carefully evaluating which one would grant the greatest benefits to his summons. He immediately writes off the heavy sword and giant rhino armor as they are exclusive items for warrior classes. With no other viable choice, he reaches out to select the Cloak of the Lunar Veil, which grants an incredible bonus of 50 mana. Upon equipping the beautiful cloak, his total mana pool rises to 135, allowing him to summon 50 more soldiers at once. The principal raises the young man's arm, officially proclaiming him the undisputed overall champion of the freshman trial. The entire crowd goes into absolute frenzy, chanting the MC's name in unison, echoing throughout the whole school courtyard. Pluto merely cracks a subtle smirk, knowing that was only the first step in his grand journey of leveling up. The principal warns that the actual guild recruitment exam takes place in 1 month, and that everyone must keep training hard. A short while later, the scene shifts to the humble low-income residential complex where our MC lives alone. Inside his small bedroom, he thoughtfully examines the golden key he received as a gift from the experienced, powerful Elder Crowley. Recalling what he learned from books, he begins channeling his mana directly into the object to activate the mysterious portal. The golden relic begins sparking with purple energy as a small dimensional vortex opens up right before him. The young man is impressed to see the item is capable of opening a direct gateway to the dungeon from anywhere he happens to be. He recalls the master's advice regarding the importance of bringing along a support or healer ally to ensure safety. However, the kid mentally apologizes to old Crowley, knowing full well that things work out much better his own way. The necromancer prefers going completely solo, taking the first step and stepping into the mysterious purple portal without hesitation. The space around him distorts completely as he is transported at extreme speeds right into the Rift of Blessing. Opening his eyes, Pluto finds himself in a rocky mountain valley under a clear blue sky. Noticing the environment is quite unique. Suddenly, level 9 blade-tail leopards emerge. Fast, dangerous creatures that strike from very difficult angles. The kid knows the best strategy is taking out targets quickly and absolutely refusing to let the monsters get close. Wasting no time, he triggers his magic, summoning his loyal bone soldiers, ordering them to form a wall of absolute protection. His faithful warriors raise their giant metal shields, forming an impenetrable wall around our MC. The leopard charges with everything but gets sliced instantly, yielding 300 experience points for the young necromancer. He stands shocked at the amount of experience granted by basic monsters, realizing he will level up long before finding the boss. Pluto clears out the rift's first beasts, deciding to push ahead to fully explore the most dangerous zones of that mysterious place. While farming heavy experience, the young man notices his warriors spend a lot of energy protecting him, deciding he needs to upgrade his personal defense. One of the sharp-tailed leopards leaps fiercely at one of his skeletal warriors, kicking off a violent clash in the rocky dungeon. Unluckily for the monster, the undead counterattacks with surgical precision, eliminating it and securing another 300 experience points for the kid. The young man feels a surge of energy, finally hitting level 10 and successfully reaching the double-digit mark he was so eager to achieve. At that exact moment, a floating panel pops up in front of him, revealing he unlocked a new skill for achieving that milestone. He gains Death Stare, a powerful technique capable of paralyzing any creature with fear if they look directly into his deep eyes. Pluto realizes that as long as the level gap isn't massive, he can freeze any adversary, creating the absolute perfect opening to attack. He knows other hunters view this skill as useless due to its massive 24-hour cooldown requirement. However, our MC possesses his limit removal, which theoretically allows him to spam this terror magic infinitely without stopping. Before he can celebrate, a brutal impact shakes the entire ground, signaling the arrival of a high-level monstrous creature. A giant black panther known as the Leopard King emerges, roaring loudly and ready to shred everything in its path. Pluto is surprised to see the dungeon boss show up way earlier than expected, making the fight even more intense. Without backing down, he commands his forces to surround the giant monster and eliminate it as quickly and brutally as possible. The powerful feline is far too fast, charging forward with a devastating attack aimed at crushing the undead defensive formation. With a single swipe of its sharp tail, the monstrous beast manages to shatter the kid's defenses, turning several skeletons into bone dust. The MC realizes the boss's speed is absurd, as it broke the front line before his barrier could even form properly on the field. At this rate, his loyal soldiers would be wiped completely out of the dungeon before landing any meaningful damage on the dangerous panther. He raises his staff, knowing he will need to use his mysterious new dark paralysis magic if he wants to turn this tough fight around. A thick, dangerous crimson smoke begins pouring from his body, blanketing the ground and spreading rapidly across the entire dungeon floor. Dark energy condenses above the MC, creating a heavy, terrifying atmosphere that would scare off any ordinary warrior. He summons the massive Eye of Death, which opens in the sky, casting a terrifying red glow aimed straight at the massive Leopard King. Pluto draws the beast's attention, taunting the giant monster and forcing it to look straight at his sinister new crowd control skill. The creature falls into the kid's trap, turning its head to face the massive glowing eye structure hovering silently in the sky. The monster lets out a cry of pain, but is immediately struck by dark energy tendrils that begin binding its brutal movements. The kid cracks a smug smile upon noticing his secret paralysis technique worked flawlessly against the powerful elite adversary. The death stare skill locks the opponent in a state of absolute terror, preventing it from performing any combat action for a few seconds. The Leopard King begins trembling in fear, unable to break that powerful mental bind, keeping it completely frozen in place. The young man calculates the Panther's level is lower than his, meaning the paralysis effect will last at least 5 solid seconds. To him, that is no problem, as he can simply summon another eye if the effect wears off, already prepping his explosive skeletons for the assault. His undead minions appear carrying barrels packed with gunpowder, marching relentlessly toward the completely paralyzed monster. With a snap of his fingers, the young necromancer gives the ultimate command, sending his suicide squad straight at the defenseless Leopard King. A wave of deafening explosions swallows the giant panther, creating a massive barrier of fire and destruction in the middle of the field. The creature roars in extreme agony amidst the black smoke, taking heavy damage from the terrible destruction wrought by the MC's gunpowder. The moment the fear effect drops, the beast attempts to leap furiously, but gets greeted by another brutal detonation that completely halts its charge. Pluto triggers his limit removal once again without a shred of mercy, summoning another colossal eye in the sky to renew the adversary's torment. The barrels keep exploding non-stop on top of the enemy, while the paralysis skill keeps it trapped in an infinite loop of torture. The massive red eye structure glows intensely in the sky, leaving the miserable monster unable to move even a single muscle in its body. With a few more destructive blasts, the kid seals the fate of the terrifying panther, which succumbs to the overwhelming power of his new strategy. The boss is finally defeated, awarding 30,000 experience points, making the kid cheer with joy over the reward granted by the elder. He levels up, realizing it is impossible to score such an absurd gain in any regular dungeon, but knows he has other priorities to handle. The young man remembers he hit level 18 and unlocked another limit removal right before being abruptly interrupted by the boss's arrival. The system reveals his physical limit has been removed, unlocking incorporeal form, which temporarily turns him into an intangible entity. Pluto is amazed to notice this spirit form renders him immune to any physical or magical attack, viewing it as the absolute perfect survival skill. However, he realizes this magic drains a ton of mana per second, understanding he will need to focus on raising his mana points as fast as possible. In this moment of reflection, an extremely bright beam of light begins emanating from the defeated monster's body, drawing his full attention. A massive pillar of golden light erupts into the sky, and the kid excitedly wonders if he actually managed to pull a legendary quality item drop this early on. Meanwhile, far away, the scene cuts over to the massive, lavish mansion of the wealthy and influential aristocratic Blackwood family in the city. Sitting alone on a fancy sofa, Adrian clutches a glass of wine, pure hatred boiling inside him over being humiliated in front of the whole school. He can't stop replaying the killer, dark glare the MC gave him, swearing he will get revenge on that insolent orphan, no matter what it takes. Adrian angrily recalls how he was made a fool of in the courtyard, and how everyone laughed at his despair during the rookie evaluation. Consumed by blind, uncontrollable rage, he squeezes the crystal glass so hard that it completely shatters in his hand. His butler asks in alarm if he hurt himself, but the rich kid simply orders him to clean up the mess quickly as he is about to receive a guest. While the employee sweeps up the glass, he swears in his thoughts that Pluto will bitterly regret crossing his path at the academy. Right then, another mansion staff member enters the luxurious reception hall, announcing that the young master's mysterious guest has just arrived. Adrian shouts rudely, commanding the worker to leave the room instantly, and the poor staff member bows apologetically before stepping out. The rich kid orders them to let the guest in, and then tells all staff to vanish so they can speak in private. The mysterious visitor enters the hall carrying an exotic, glowing blue bow that draws attention due to its heavy magical energy. Outside, the staff whisper nervously, failing to understand how their young master got mixed up with a man who looks so dangerous. The senior butler whispers back, stating that the word dangerous is an understatement to describe that mysterious guy's terrifying reputation. He reveals the man has already completed 33 assassination contracts, and rumors say he can take lives from miles away. It turns out to be Cedric Thornhill, an A-rank professional assassin who immediately warns he charges double if the target is a woman or child. Adrian lets out a wicked laugh, reassuring the mercenary by stating the target is a male, though the archer remarks that takes the fun out of the hunt. Cedric plops onto the couch in a relaxed, smug posture, commenting he assumes his target is some kind of highly dangerous professional hunter. The young Blackwood master's eyes widen in total shock, asking how the archer managed to deduce that information. The sniper cracks a sarcastic side smile, replying it was easy to guess simply because Adrian is a hunter himself. The mercenary asks if the target is an S-rank hunter for an A-rank warrior to be calling in outside backup to take him down. With a serious and bitter look, the rich kid denies it, revealing that his hated enemy's class is actually just a standard necromancer. Cedric stands in absolute shock, asking in confusion if the target really belongs to that trash class that takes half an hour just to spawn a single skeleton. The heir swallows his pride, confirming with a shaky voice that he is, while the assassin begins letting out a snarky chuckle right to his face. The sniper's quiet chuckle starts growing louder and more uncontrollable, leaving the young master extremely annoyed and tense. Cedric laughs out loud, finding it hilarious that an elite warrior would hire a professional assassin simply because he got beaten by a miserable necromancer. Adrian yells furiously, explaining the kid isn't normal and that besides leveling up fast, he is already the top prospect for the Dragon Guild. The archer stops laughing instantly, turning serious upon hearing the name of the most powerful guild in the nation, admitting that complicates things significantly. The rich kid breaks into a cold sweat over the mercenary's shift in tone, nervously asking if he is thinking about backing out due to fear. But the professional hunter flashes a bizarre, ear-to-ear grin, shouting that the price for the assassination just went up drastically. Adrian sighs in relief, stating money is no issue for his wealthy family, provided the hit is carried out flawlessly. Cedric agrees with satisfaction, requesting only a photo and basic intel on the target, guaranteeing he will find him without major issues. Following that, he cracks a sadistic, terrifying smile, promising he will put a permanent end to the young prodigy's life the moment he locates him. The rich kid assures him he can provide way more than basic info, as he attends the same class as Pluto and knows his exact address. The archer takes his leave, stating that makes his job much easier, while Adrian nervously warns him not to fail under any circumstances. Feeling offended, the A-rank hunter halts his stride, casting a deadly glare backward, asking aggressively if the kid is doubting him. Adrian recoils at the assassin's terrifying pressure, stuttering desperately that it was merely a friendly safety tip. Cedric arrogantly warns he doesn't take tips from a failure who got beaten by a C-rank hunter, walking off. The heir flies into a blind rage over being humiliated once again with that exact same look of contempt he received from the MC during the exam. He sinks into the couch, trying to calm down while taking a deep breath, convincing himself that all that stress will be worth it in the end. His eyes glint with insane madness as he screams that he doesn't care about the method, as long as that cursed Pluto ends up dead. He lets out one final scream of rage while the scene cuts back to the MC's dark bedroom, where a purple portal begins to open up. The young man analyzes the beautiful legendary Void Carver dagger, which grants 50 agility points and cuts mana usage in half. He notes the gear is top tier but useless for his mage class, deciding to keep the rare relic to sell for serious cash. Pluto celebrates the rift's success, which yielded 2 levels and 2 awesome spells, wondering how he should thank the experienced Elder Crowley. The youth approaches the portal to head back to his apartment and rest, knowing he has a crucial meeting scheduled with the master. He steps through the dimensional gateway, vanishing from the dungeon amidst a heavy swirl of purple energy that seals up right after. His feet touch the cold floor of his humble residence, and the magical passage completely dissipates, leaving the room in quiet once again. The MC scans his small bedroom space, commenting to himself that the place feels like a literal cage after witnessing the vastness of the rift. Suddenly, his room's glass window shatters into 1,000 pieces as a powerful projectile of blue energy violently cuts through the air. Pluto stands in complete shock upon realizing he was hit dead in the chest by a magic arrow fired from an absurd distance away. Unable to pull off any defensive reaction, the young man loses his strength and collapses violently onto his room floor amidst the shattered glass. Atop a distant rooftop, the terrible assassin Cedric Thornhill lowers his magical bow, laughing as he whispers that the target was successfully eliminated. Meanwhile, inside the massive office of the Dragon Guild president, the nation's supreme leader sits deep in thought, listening about the 200-point youth. Crowley reminds the president that he himself was a national legend with 120 points, but that this kid's potential goes far beyond that. The elder guarantees that if the young prodigy with 200 talent points is trained right, he could completely shift the nation's future. Curious, with a mysterious glint in his eye, the imposing supreme leader of the Dragon Guild asks directly what the young man's class is. Leaning on his staff, the experienced Elder Crowley replies simply and directly that the kid's class is merely necromancer. The president goes dead silent for a few moments, seriously reflecting on the danger and weight of that unbelievable revelation. He ponders that class usually dictates the growth cap for any warrior, and that a C rank typically has a very low power ceiling. Crowley cuts him off, stating that is precisely why he is an anomaly, as the youth managed to shatter every rule of the class system. The supreme leader narrows his golden eyes, extremely focused on the elder's words, eager to uncover the secret behind the kid. The elder reveals enthusiastically that the kid hit the ultimate legendary tier of summoning with 0 active quantity limits. The president stands amazed, realizing that if the young man has enough mana, he can command a colossal army of undead all by himself. He asks if there are legendary items involved, but Crowley reassures him the kid was using a basic, cheap staff when they met. Fascinated by the existence of a genius capable of breaking the system itself, the supreme leader declares he must meet the young man in person. Not wanting to waste another second, he asks immediately where the kid is currently located so he can go meet him as fast as possible. Crowley explains he gifted him the key to the Rift of Blessing and that he is likely already braving the dangers of that dungeon. The president worries since there is no communication inside the rift, but the elder reassures him he instructed him to take a healing support. The old master firmly believes that with his powerful summons and the aid of any healer, the kid would be completely safe against anything. The supreme leader concludes that this uncapped necromancer could be the key to the entire nation's survival in the terrible upcoming war. Meanwhile, back in the city, the magic arrow fired by the fearsome assassin travels through the air at high speeds, slicing through the dark night. The projectile of blue energy shatters the window glass of the small bedroom with a violent snap, catching the MC completely off guard. The treacherous attack strikes the young man's back with extreme force, appearing to have pierced his body in an absolutely fatal manner. Cedric celebrates the hit's success from afar, merely regretting arriving too late to steal the golden key from the defeated kid. The cruel assassin flashes a sadistic grin, prepping to watch front row as whoever finds the prodigy's lifeless body falls into despair. He decides to wait until the kid's supposed teammates exit the dungeon and walk straight into that horrific scene of death. However, the rift suddenly seals up out of nowhere, and the energy portal silently dissipates into the air without anyone stepping out. Cedric gets confused, noticing the dungeon vanished and no other person showed up to rescue the kid hit by his fatal shot. Peer through the broken glass, he stands in shock, realizing the young man braved the rift entirely alone and is still sitting on his room floor. Pluto calmly stands up, commenting to himself that it was way too close and that he came dangerously close to being taken out for real. He reveals that if not for his new incorporeal form skill, he would definitely be nothing more than a corpse stretched out on the floor right now. The kid complains indignantly about catching a lethal arrow to the back right after stepping out of the dungeon, experiencing a near-death moment out of nowhere. Consumed by deep anger, Pluto triggers his death stare immediately, swearing to make whoever was responsible pay dearly for that cowardice. Cedric panics upon seeing a colossal red eye open in the sky, unable to comprehend how the kid survived his direct energy shot. The mercenary gets struck dead center by terror, despairing as he notices his body is completely frozen and unable to perform any action. He tries to stay calm, recalling they are separated by miles, and that the kid couldn't possibly maintain control while closing the distance at the same time. The sniper focuses on resisting the mental paralysis, swearing he has countless ways to kill the kid the moment he regains his mobility. Cedric watches the distant building, convincing himself all he needs to do is hold firm for a few seconds until the fear effect wears off. The MC reveals he planned on playing dead to lure his rival in, but didn't expect the assassin to be so cautious and distant. The kid cracks a side smile, stating he always keeps a backup plan, silently summoning an elite skeleton right behind his rival's back. The sniper senses the dark presence too late, falling into total despair, unable to understand how an undead appeared out of thin air right there. The skeletal soldier lands a precise sword strike, piercing the mercenary's back, who lets out a choked scream of pain from the impact. The terror effect finally wears off, and the assassin uses his strength to burst with energy, destroying the summon that attacked him cowardly. Cedric roars furiously, remembering he is level 18 and that a single weak skeleton could never break his active defense barrier. Free from mental control, he prepares to return fire, swearing to turn the insolent MC into a literal target full of holes. But before he can even draw his bowstring, the assassin freezes completely upon feeling that exact same terrifying pressure from before return. To his absolute horror, the massive red eye glows once again in the sky, activating the terrible paralysis skill one more time. The archer tries to stay composed, remembering necromancers take time to summon and that the kid would need to paralyze him for half an hour to win. Pluto analyzes the situation coldly, knowing his opponent is 5 levels higher and that a single basic soldier would barely tickle him. But the kid simply cracks a sinister smile, commenting that fortunately, his stock of undead warriors is completely infinite. With a quick command, he summons dozens of skeletal soldiers all at once, blanketing the building's rooftop in a thick, dark mist. Cedric stands in complete shock, breaking into a cold sweat of panic, unable to comprehend how it is possible for that youth to summon so many creatures simultaneously. The mercenary realizes that power goes far beyond the system's rules, cursing furiously upon noticing that cursed Adrian lied about Pluto's level. Pluto points toward the distant buildings, issuing the final order for his undead army to begin advancing without mercy. The skeletal warriors begin sprinting down the walls of adjacent buildings, making a chilling noise that sends shivers down the spine. The pack of skeletons completely ignores gravity, scaling structures with a terrifying agility that seems like a total joke. They shatter glass windows along the way, scattering shards everywhere as they continue rushing down in a massive hurry. With perfectly synced leaps, Pluto's creatures finally land directly on top of the roof where the sniper is cornered. One of the skeletal soldiers charges forward rapidly through the air, wielding its weapon with the sole purpose of slicing the enemy once and for all. Pluto watches the scene from below with crossed arms, complaining quietly that it would be way easier if necromancers could fly. Desperate and surrounded on all sides, the assassin drops his weapon to the ground, screaming as he begs for a chance to bargain for his life. The kid hears that humiliation from afar, sarcastically asking if the mercenary genuinely thinks he still has any use for him. Pluto calmly appears on the roof, warning he is very curious to hear what that professional sniper has to say to save himself. The man drops to his knees, trembling, promising he will reveal the identity of the person who hired him in exchange for being spared from that horrific execution. With a cold glare, the necromancer reveals he already knows full well that the client behind it all was the spoiled rich kid named Adrian Blackwood. The assassin's eyes widen in total panic, screaming in confusion as to how the kid already knew that secret, which should have been super confidential. He tries to bargain again, offering free hits, but Pluto simply reminds him that a real killer must be prepared to meet his end. The young man admits the shooter genuinely holds great value for his plans, but that this usefulness will only be exploited in a different manner. With a terrifying smile, Pluto warns that the mercenary will only start being truly useful once he is completely dead. Giving zero further chance for talk, the MC calls upon his dark powers, coldly commanding his soldiers to execute the enemy. The assassin screams in absolute despair, begging for mercy while one of the skeletons raises its heavy weapon to land the final strike. The skeleton slices through the air with its glowing weapon, performing a precise and unmerciful move that instantly silences the poor guy's screams. The target's blood splashes violently, staining the MC's face, who doesn't even blink at the sheer brutality of what just transpired. With the job done, the criminal's lifeless body drops onto the cold rooftop floor, while Pluto simply observes the scene with total detachment. Immediately after, the young man feels extreme exhaustion hit, dropping to his knees on the floor, needing his weapon for support to avoid passing out right there. He lets out a long sigh of relief for managing to survive yet another extremely dangerous surprise attack in the middle of the dark night. Pluto realizes his energy pool is virtually drained after running so many paralysis spells and using his incorporeal form to dodge the shot. He recalls soldiers carry a solid summon range and that he took advantage of his intangible moment to summon one right behind the door. While the assassin was focused on taking his shot, the summoned skeleton received direct orders to track down the enemy and catch him completely by surprise. All of this went down while Pluto himself acted as dangerous live bait to draw the shooter's full focus during the fight. The youth stands up grumbling, stating that having his magical energy completely drained is one of the most unpleasant and uncomfortable feelings ever. Looking down at the corpse, he acknowledges the opponent's skill in landing flawless shots from absurd distances was indeed impressive. He prepares to use his necromancy skills, praying the process won't completely suck out the tiny bit of mana he has left. Purple energy begins emanating from the deceased mercenary's body as the MC carefully executes the soul extraction process. The system notifies him that the evolution lock has been removed and that he can now command one of his skeletons to absorb the soul to transform. Pluto holds the glowing essence of his fallen opponent in his hands, knowing he possesses the powerful soul of a professional assassin. With a firm command, the kid directs the floating soul into one of his skeletal soldiers to initiate the fusion process. The system confirms the removal of the evolution limit, and a massive wave of dark purple energy erupts around the entire creature. The dark mist swirls violently, creating a vortex of power that wraps around the soldier as the transformation proceeds at maximum speed. A new, imposing, and vastly more powerful silhouette begins taking shape amidst that magical storm illuminating the building top. The process wraps up, revealing the birth of an elite marksman-class skeleton possessing insane aiming and tracking capabilities. The new soldier rocks a stylish hat and glowing blue accents, alongside the ability to manifest magic arrows by consuming its master's mana. Pluto gets super hyped, noticing the evolved creature will level up right alongside him, becoming his very first ranged ally. Suddenly, a red system warning ruins the party, stating the evolution is incomplete and that the soldier cannot fight in this state. The young man gets extremely confused by the surprise alert, questioning what could possibly be missing for the transformation to finally wrap up. He places a hand on his chin, deep in thought, attempting to figure out what hidden requirement the system is demanding to unlock the bonus. Suddenly, a rapid thought flashes through the sharp kid's mind as he begins formulating a very plausible and logical theory. The youth's eyes light up as he looks down at the ground, asking himself if the missing secret to complete it all isn't the weapon of its former owner. He picks up the beautiful, epic-quality bow of the fallen assassin, noting the weapon grants a solid boost to maximum mana for whoever equips it. Despite the mana bonus, he finds the item a bit bland, deciding the absolute best use for the light bow is testing his evolution theory. Wasting no time, the MC hands the glowing weapon over to his new skeletal soldier, waiting eagerly to see the final result. That very instant, the bow begins glowing intensely, and the skeleton lets out a roar of power, fully completing its evolution to A rank. Pluto grins in satisfaction upon confirming his theory, concluding it makes total sense for a marksman to require a weapon to do battle. Pluto tells the skeleton to use that bow for now, promising to fetch far better gear once he manages to take down stronger monsters. To the young man's absolute shock, the skeleton responds in an imposing tone, stating it will promptly obey all commands from its beloved master. The necromancer's eyes widen in total perplexity, realizing his evolved summons have now gained the unbelievable ability to speak. The elite archer simply confirms that it can indeed speak, continuing to stare at its creator with its glowing eyes of pure blue fire. Following that, the soldier kneels out of respect, stating it has just one small request, while the MC listens closely with deep curiosity. The skeletal warrior makes its plea directly, humbly requesting its master grant it an actual name to carry into battle. Pluto repeats the word thoughtfully, attempting to find a worthy, striking name for that creature that just displayed so much loyalty. The young man agrees that calling his new ally simply hexadecimal-eyed sniper would be totally bland and lacking personality. He reflects seriously atop the building, knowing his very first evolved warrior deserves a respectful name that does justice to its immense power. At that exact moment, a very old memory from his past life flashes inside his mind, causing the young man's expression to completely shift. The MC recalls the time he still lived on Earth in the middle of a horrific urban war zone, surrounded by ruined buildings and utter chaos. Back then, he fought alongside an experienced veteran sniper who was calmly prepping his precision rifle for another mission. The young Pluto of that era innocently asked if that weapon was truly capable of taking down the dangerous enemy leader from far away. Another soldier nearby laughed at the rookie, asking if the kid genuinely didn't know the legendary reputation of that professional sniper. The man explained that Sniper was a true living legend, capable of blowing off the enemy commander's head from over 4 miles away. He continued, stating all surviving enemies used to tremble in fear, nicknaming that ruthless sniper the Distant Reaper. Through the rifle's telescopic scope, one could spot the enemy's tyrannical commander screaming cruel orders at his armed goons. The enemy general yelled with hatred, telling them to show zero mercy and chop up bodies to ensure all opponents were dead. The legendary sniper simply kept his breathing calm, gently squeezing the weapon's trigger without showing a single trace of hesitation or fear. An insanely violent blast echoed throughout the ruined city as the bullet was dispatched toward the target at incredible speed. The bullet traveled through the air, cutting through the wind with pinpoint accuracy straight into the middle of the enemy leader's forehead, who didn't even have time to react. The precise shot hit the cruel enemy general's skull dead center, who dropped dead on the floor instantly, spraying blood across the entire area. The surviving guards fell into total panic, screaming that there was a sniper in the area, ordering everyone to take cover fast. Young Pluto stood in total shock, admiring that incredible shot made from miles away, enthusiastically praising his war comrade. He stood staring at that legendary warrior with eyes glowing with admiration and drive, swearing he wanted to be exact like him one day. The recruit excitedly asked what the veteran's name was, begging the warrior to take him on as a student and teach him to shoot with precision. The sniper merely smirked arrogantly, replying his code name was Archer, while asking back what the noisy rookie was called. Back in the present, the necromancer cracks a subtle, nostalgic smile upon remembering that important life lesson he received in his distant past. Pluto looks straight into the skeleton's eyes, solemnly declaring that from that moment on, his new official ally's name shall be Archer. The creature bows its head in total respect, proudly accepting the name, while the system officially updates the file for the new level 11 soldier. The young man orders the skeleton to return to its summoning dimension, and Archer begins fading amidst a dark mist that wraps around it completely. The system screen confirms the recall, showing that the MC now holds only one of his 5 available slots filled for evolved soldiers. Pluto analyzes the skill's limitations, realizing he needs to pick with extreme wisdom who the next 4 creatures he chooses to evolve will be. He sighs in relief for not wasting that valuable evolution on weak basic dungeon monsters, which would have been a total waste of potential. Suddenly, a green magic circle glows brightly on the roof floor, startling the kid, who thinks he is being targeted by yet another attack. But the necromancer quickly notices the light pattern matches the teleportation portal used in the guild's rookie recruitment exam. Stepping out from the bright light is the respectable Elder Crowley, revealing the guild president sent him there urgently out of concern. The old master starts speaking, but suddenly freezes his gaze on the floor, his eyes widening as he spots the chaotic state of that dark building top. The elder asks in horror what on earth happened in that place, while the MC simply cracks an innocent smile, playing dumb. The night remains quiet over the city while the experienced leader attempts to process the brutal battle scene he just stumbled onto on the roof. Crowley asks in surprise if the kid is trying to say he just stepped out of the Rift of Blessing and was immediately ambushed by a powerful enemy. Pluto calmly confirms it, breaking into a cold sweat as he remembers that if he had taken 1 second longer to recall Archer, his evolution secret would have been exposed. The old master asks where the healer who was supposed to be accompanying the kid is, and Pluto starts stuttering, not quite knowing how to explain he went solo. The elder narrows his eyes with extreme seriousness and suspicion upon realizing the young prodigy may have lied and bypassed safety protocols. Crowley flies into a rage, yelling as he asks if the MC truly ignored all his safety warnings and entered that dangerous rift completely alone. The old man scolds the youth about the colossal loss his death would bring, but Pluto reassures him that dungeons of that tier are zero problem for him. The elder observes that fearless attitude, thinking to himself that this dangerous arrogance is identical to what the president himself possessed in his youth. Quickly shifting subjects, the necromancer asks the reason for the surprise late-night visit, considering they were only supposed to meet the following day. Crowley explains he reported everything to the president and received direct orders to escort the kid immediately to the official headquarters of the Azure Dragon Guild. The elder warns that the supreme leader is already waiting for them, and Pluto accepts the official summons, taking one last look at the defeated body on the floor. The elder notes the guild's cleanup crew will take care of everything, and that a full incident report will be delivered as soon as they arrive. Pluto scans the area curiously, asking the old man why they aren't using one of those magical teleportation portals to travel faster. The older man replies directly that his warrior class doesn't allow him to conjure magic circles out of nowhere, and that those appearances had a secret. He explains those portals were set up beforehand by specialized space mages, mockingly asking if the kid actually thought he did all that himself. To the kid's surprise, the old man reveals he had a temporary magic circle engraved directly onto the back of the MC's black jacket. The young man gets a huge jump, realizing he was marked from behind without even noticing, letting out an outraged shout at that absurd reveal. Crowley tells the kid to relax, calmly explaining the circle was single use and that the magic mark has already completely faded from his clothes. The glowing symbol on the back of Pluto's jacket begins releasing small sparks of purple energy, vanishing into the air without leaving a single trace. Immediately after, a fancy black limousine with tinted windows pulls up quietly to the curb right in front of the two warriors in the middle of the night. Two employees wearing green guild jackets step out of the car, bowing respectfully as they announce the transportation has arrived for the master. The elder points to the top of the building, dryly ordering the men to clear the assassin's body up top and bring over his intel shortly. The workers accept the order right away, while Pluto observes the scene, thinking they must be logistics staff unsuited for combat. Crowley commands the kid to get inside the luxury vehicle right away, so as not to keep the president waiting, and the MC accepts the command without complaining. The luxury car speeds off, its engine roaring loudly, vanishing through the dark city streets toward the elite guild headquarters. One of the cleaners comments to his buddy that he is super envious of the young man, as the vice president himself is personally escorting him straight to the supreme leader. The other worker reveals in a mysterious, serious tone that he took advantage of the opening to sneak a discreet peek at the student's class. He expected to find some hidden supreme rank prodigy, but stands confused as he tells his coworker the kid's class is merely necromancer. His partner shouts in total shock, stating that is impossible, since even their most basic cleaning gig requires at least a B-rank power standing. The man who performed the scan breaks into a cold sweat of terror, concluding the kid noticed the espionage and forged fake data in record time to fool him. The other cleaner dismisses the idea in fear, recalling his partner's scanning technique is so flawless it goes undetected even by elite veterans. The man gulps nervously, realizing that if the kid actually pulled that off instantly, it means he is a true monster disguised as a student. Inside the limousine, Pluto starts sweating out of nervousness, realizing that in a very short time, he will come face to face with the most powerful warrior in the entire nation. Crowley senses the youth's tension, telling him to take a deep breath and settle his thoughts, as they have finally arrived at their elite destination. The massive black limousine pulls up in front of a colossal skyscraper fortress, rising imposingly beneath the dark night clouds in the city. The MC admires the grandeur of the Azure Dragon Guild headquarters, while the old master steps out of the car, instructing the kid to follow closely. They stop before a massive iron gate crafted with the image of an imposing dragon, which begins opening with a heavy dragging sound. The massive flag bearing the Dragon Guild crest flutters in the wind atop that colossal entrance, radiating an aura of extreme power. Upon stepping into the luxurious lobby, elite guards wearing shining armor salute and welcome the respected vice president. With a firm, serious posture, Crowley directly commands the guards to lead him immediately to the president's private conference room. The group of elite warriors marches in sync down the massive castle hallways, clearing the path for the pair to advance with top priority. Pluto glances at the guards' gear, surprised to notice they all wear standard A-rank paladin armor, level 50 minimum. Upon reaching the massive door of the main office, the lead guard notes their level is too low to enter and that they will take their leave. The old master simply thanks the men for their excellent work with a slight nod, maintaining his imposing posture as an experienced leader. Crowley stops before the massive entrance, warning the MC in a serious tone that this time he will have to open the president's door himself. The young man grows thoughtful, noticing that level 50 paladins, who would be gods in smaller guilds, aren't even allowed near the door here. Showing no hesitation, the kid pushes open the massive heavy doors, which swing open to reveal a luxurious office lit up by distant city lights. At the back of the room, the imposing silhouette of President Victor Langley watches the city through the massive glass window in a stance radiating pure power. The leader begins reading aloud the criminal record of the assassin Cedric Thornhill, listing all his kills and revealing he was a level 18 wanted criminal. The kid stands impressed by the guild intelligence's efficiency, having pulled up the criminal's entire profile in just a few minutes of searching. Victor Langley leans against the fine wood desk, explaining that the theoretical limit for a higher-ranked warrior to defeat a lower-ranked one is a 3-level gap. The president locks eyes with the MC, highlighting that Pluto, being a mere C rank, managed to defeat a veteran assassin 7 levels above him. He points out that even with unlimited summons, the experienced shooter should have taken out the MC long before he could manifest his massive army. The powerful S-rank warrior named Victor Langley steps forward, asking point-blank how much power the young necromancer is hiding from everyone. Pluto feels a bone-chilling shiver run down his spine, his body freezing up, failing to comprehend why he is sensing such an overwhelming pressure out of nowhere. The young man realizes the Supreme Guild leader is unleashing a massive aura of killer intent straight at him, purely to test his physical reaction. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the spoiled Adrian Blackwood, who is desperately trying to place a cell phone call only to hit voicemail once again. The rich kid begins shaking with hatred and fury, realizing an entire night has passed, and he still hasn't received any news regarding his rival's death. He completely loses his composure, crushing his own phone with his hand's strength while screaming furiously, asking what on earth the mercenary is doing. The heir sinks into the couch annoyed, concluding bitterly that his brother was dead, right when he said hired assassins are nothing but unreliable scum. He decides he has no choice left and will have to place a direct call to that mysterious go-to man. Adrian reaches out his shaky hand, grabbing his second cell phone stored in the nightstand drawer to make an emergency call. He dials his older brother directly, warning him with a shaky voice that he is in deep trouble and needs urgent help. The brother asks, annoyed, who in the city would have the nerve to mess with the Blackwood family, and Adrian tearfully confesses he was humiliated in public. Upon hearing his younger brother was forced to bark like a dog in front of the whole school, the older brother roars furiously from the other end of the line. Still carrying a voice packed with hatred, the young man tells his younger brother to calm down, explaining he is currently in the middle of a crucial guild mission. Adrian's older brother stands before a giant level 35 bear, promising he will return home and sort everything out the moment he finishes. With his fist engulfed in golden flames, he roars aggressively at the monster to get out of his way while prepping to land the punch. The powerful hunter lands a devastating punch dead center on the ice bear's face, creating an explosive shockwave that makes the monster spit blood. The massive Bear King is sent flying backward with extreme violence, carving a giant trench in the snow from the brutal impact of that single blow. Adrian's brother takes a deep breath while steam rises from his body, demonstrating absurd physical strength that barely required effort to win. Meanwhile, back at the guild's massive skyscraper, the situation inside the president's luxurious office begins turning extremely tense and dangerous. President Victor Langley stomps his armored foot hard against the ground, demanding at the top of his lungs to know every secret the young necromancer is keeping hidden. Pluto doesn't let himself be intimidated, pulling out his giant scythe of glowing purple energy, prepping to face the guild's living legend right then and there. With a sharp, defiant glare, the MC shoots back directly that the secrets of his skills are nobody's business. The president flies into a rage at the kid's cocky answer, warning with a killer glare that he will bitterly regret that audacity. The legendary warrior charges forward at high speeds, landing a devastating dark strike that causes the MC's eyes to widen in total shock. Wasting no time, the young man triggers his death stare immediately to attempt to paralyze his opponent and buy time to pull off a counterattack. Following that, he quickly summons his army of skeletal soldiers to form a physical defensive barrier between himself and the enraged leader. Pluto attempts to back away hastily, realizing he needs to break through the office walls to secure enough space to maneuver. He mentally prays that his gaze's terror effect and the soldier barrier manage to slow the president down for at least a few seconds. However, the Supreme Guild leader pushes straight through the dark mist, breaking right through the attack's psychological pressure without taking a single delay. The MC stands in total shock upon noticing the opponent's surreal speed, seemingly ignoring the laws of physics and magic entirely. The warrior charges through, effortlessly crushing the skeletons while the system alerts that his paralysis duration lasted less than 1/100th of a second. Pluto realizes in horror that his most powerful death stare failed to make the S-rank warrior hesitate for even a single miserable second. With few defensive options left, the youth simply prays mentally that the sheer volume of skeletal soldiers manages to reduce his speed. But the president disintegrates the monsters with a single swipe of his hand, scattering broken bone pieces and dust all over the conference room. The warrior's massive shadow emerges through the bone dust, leaving the MC cornered against the wall with zero room left to dodge. Pluto quickly summons another one of his elite skeletal soldiers right in front of the opponent in one final, desperate defensive attempt. He triggers explosive conversion right away, turning the summoned warrior into a dangerous suicide bomber skeleton, clutching a massive gunpowder barrel. The kid commands the creature to detonate everything at once while attempting to back away as far as possible to avoid catching the brutal fire impact. The president completely ignores the impending danger, charging straight at the bomb skeleton without showing a single worry about the lit barrel. A monumental explosion of fire and smoke consumes the president's entire room, making the walls shake with the destructive power of the magic gunpowder. Pluto cracks a cynical smile, commenting that since his opponent loves tanking explosions with his own body so much, he will give him exactly what he wants. The necromancer summons dozens of suicide bomber skeletons all at once, commanding them all to detonate their barrels on top of the leader to wipe that smirk off his face. A deafening sequence of massive blasts shakes the headquarters structure, making the top of the building glow intensely in the middle of the night. Outside, the paladins on guard stand confused by the thunderous noise, commenting that the new kid must be tough to cause all that chaos. The guards conclude the young man is definitely an elite S-rank prodigy to manage to draw so much attention from the guild's two top leaders. Inside the ruined room, Pluto breathes heavily, leaning on his scythe while attempting to catch his breath after burning so much magical energy. He watches the thick curtain of black smoke, believing that even the strongest warrior in the nation couldn't walk away completely unscathed from so many detonations. However, the smoke clears to reveal President Victor Langley standing in the exact same spot, his shining armor completely intact. The MC's eyes widen in utter shock and terror upon realizing his most destructive assault failed to leave even a single scratch on his rival. He stands incredulous, trying to comprehend how a human being was capable of tanking dozens of point-blank magic explosions directly to the chest without suffering a thing. The powerful leader dismissively wipes away a bit of dust from his face, letting out a mocking sigh, demonstrating that felt like nothing more than a tickle. Gritting his teeth in fury, Pluto decides that if dozens weren't enough, he will summon hundreds of bombs to drown the enemy in explosions. But before he can even raise his magical scythe to summon the creatures, the president moves with absurd speed through the fire. The warrior's massive hand shoots out like lightning through the black smoke, heading straight for the kid's neck, who has zero time to react. Victor Langley lifts the MC up by his neck, leaving the youth gasping for air while demanding with heavy authority to know what his other secrets are. The supreme leader tightens his grip on the kid's neck further, commanding in a furious, threatening voice that he tell the full truth that exact instant. The youth stands completely suffocated, attempting to fight through the extreme pain, feeling cold sweat run down his face, while staring the president dead in the eye. But instead of giving up, Pluto cracks a sarcastic, cocky smile and flips the bird to the most powerful man in the nation without showing a shred of fear. The president glares at the MC with extreme fury after receiving that crude gesture, and the atmosphere in the room turns even more dangerous. Suddenly, Victor lets go of the kid's neck, who drops to the floor coughing heavily, attempting to catch his breath after nearly getting strangled for real. The leader flashes a friendly ear-to-ear smile, announcing in a surprisingly calm tone that the MC just passed the test. Pluto stands up, rubbing his throat, completely confused, asking without understanding a thing what that lunatic is talking about regarding passing something. Everyone calmly takes a seat around the conference table, and the youth complains indignantly upon discovering all that aggression was merely an act. Elder Crowley explains he asked the leader to go hard, since the true despair of near death serves to expose a warrior's real character. Massaging his neck, the MC sarcastically remarks he never would have expected such a dirty setup from an old man who seemed so kind and gentle. The president takes the blame, explaining that investing the guild's valuable resources in someone who crumbles under pressure would be a total waste of time. Victor praises Pluto, stating he was thoroughly impressed not just by his infinite army of the dead, but primarily by his sheer willpower. The warrior stands up, holding out his hand to formally introduce himself as Victor Langley, the official supreme president of the Azure Dragon Guild. The young man stands surprised by the sudden shift in attitude from that man, but resolves to maintain his firm stance before the top authority there. Firmly shaking the leader's calloused hand, the youth finally introduces himself directly, stating simply that his name is Pluto. The handshake seals mutual respect between the two warriors, while Old Master Crowley observes everything in the background with a very satisfied look. The leader notes the kid's courage has already been successfully proven, but that his true combat power still needs to undergo another trial. Pluto gulps, asking in concern if the president is implying they continue that insane brawl for another devastating round. The young man assumes the gap in their power is far too large for a fair fight, asking what the actual proposal to test his strength would be. Victor proposes he solo the dangerous Goblin Cave dungeon at level 15 on the extreme difficulty known as Doomsday. The old master freezes in concern over the absurd challenge, while the MC simply turns around in silence and begins walking toward the exit. The youth reflects seriously on the challenge of taking on a level 15 dungeon entirely solo on the most insane difficulty tier of all. The president warns from afar that even if the kid fails, he will still be accepted into the guild, but won't receive any extra elite resources. Demonstrating unwavering confidence, the MC accepts the elite mission, guaranteeing he will fulfill every single requirement without issue. Victor cracks a side smile, finding the kid's audacity amusing, wishing his actual combat power matches his immense arrogance. Exiting the office, Pluto recalls school textbooks, warning that Doomsday Mode monsters are many times stronger than those in Gold Mode. He knows the level 15 dungeon is 4 levels above his current standing, but understands he needs to clear this trial to gain full backing. Back in the office, Crowley complains to the president, asking if the conditions set for the kid's test weren't far too harsh and cruel. The elder recalls that in the past, Victor himself required a 4-man level 12 party and nearly died to manage to clear that dungeon. The leader gazes out the window, explaining that if the kid is only slightly better than he was in the past, then he wouldn't be worth going all in on. Victor Langley states firmly that the warrior receiving maximum support from the entire guild needs to demonstrate off-the-charts potential. He declares the kid needs to prove he is the strongest professional of this generation, while Pluto finally arrives at the Goblin Cave entrance. The young man ensures he rested up well before coming, and that his magical energy was fully restored after the tense brawl against the president. Showing zero fear, the necromancer steps into the dungeon portal, challenging the terrifying and feared Doomsday difficulty head-on. The dimensional gateway glows with intense red and purple energy as it transports the MC's body inside the dangerous environment. The passage seals up with a heavy swirl of wind, and Pluto finally sets foot on the rocky dungeon ground, prepping for imminent combat. Outside, a guard stands shocked, seeing the youth enter alone, and his buddy warns that doing so without an A-rank class is pure suicide. The first lookout yells in panic, stating the kid picked Doomsday difficulty, and the other says he must be hallucinating because of how absurd that is. Walking through the dark cave, the MC tries to recall what school textbooks teach about goblins, boiling it down to 2 words. He remembers creatures of that species are known for being extremely brutal and unmerciful to any intruder stepping into their turf. Strange little noises begin echoing off the dungeon's stone walls, revealing the creatures have already picked up on the young man's presence there. Suddenly, dozens of goblins with glowing yellow eyes emerge from the cave shadows, wielding spiked clubs and laughing freakishly. Pluto analyzes the group, noting nearly 100 monsters are blocking the path, concluding they indeed do not look like easy opponents to take down. However, the kid cracks a confident smile, recalling his skeleton army vastly outnumbers the absurd amount of enemies in the area. With a cold command, he orders his soldiers to push forward with everything to slaughter and drown the green monsters under a colossal wave of bones. The goblins scream in despair as they get sliced up by the undead swords, yielding an absurd volume of experience points. Pluto celebrates upon noticing the Doomsday difficulty multipliers are insane and that he will level up super fast clearing this place out. Blue energy wraps around the MC's body, showing he has already hit level 11 with over 30% of the progress toward the next. He observes the frozen, fallen bodies on the rocky floor, concluding with satisfaction that all entry opponents have been completely wiped out. Wasting no time, the youth issues the order for his skeleton army to begin marching deeper toward the dark heart of the dungeon. The young man merely regrets his summon range is capped at 5 meters, imagining how sweet it would be to clear the entire map without walking. He lets out a light side smile, wondering if he isn't asking for too much ease in wanting to control a massive army without having to move. Noticing his undead have already pushed far down the tunnel, the MC picks up his pace to keep close up with the battle's tempo. Another elite goblin is defeated by Pluto's skeletal warriors, securing a solid experience point reward in the process. The MC walks calmly through the cave, commenting that the volume of enemies in his path is surprisingly low. But the kid quickly grows suspicious of the ease, knowing full well the guild president would never set up such a simple walk in the park. Suddenly, a deafening, violent rumble shakes the cave's inner structure, startling even the nearby creatures. Large rocks begin falling from the dungeon ceiling, while the ground shakes non-stop, revealing something truly dangerous is approaching. Pluto observes the heavy ground vibrations, concluding seriously that a giant opponent is heading his way to kick off the real battle. The youth points into the tunnel's darkness, directly ordering his skeletal soldiers to march forward fearlessly to uncover what is coming. But in less than a second, a colossal club crushes Pluto's summons, sending broken bone pieces flying to all sides of the cave. The young man stands surprised by the monster's absurd raw strength, admitting it is the first time he has seen his elite warriors destroyed like that. He fixes his gaze on the tunnel's deep darkness, concluding with total certainty that the feared dungeon boss has finally shown its face. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps make the entire dungeon tremble continuously as the massive creature slowly approaches through the dust. The necromancer simply cracks a sarcastic side smile, mockingly commenting on the giant elite monster's triumphant and over-the-top entrance. The terrifying dungeon boss emerges smashing rocks, revealing itself as the colossal level 10 goblin that leads the dark cave's entire pack. Pluto realizes the opponent's size would be perfect to test his explosive skeletons, but the monster rushed in too fast, preventing the swap. He commands part of the army to hold the boss while he preps the rest of his skeletal soldiers to turn into magical gunpowder bombs. The undead creatures advance in a coordinated fashion toward the green giant to try to distract it and buy time for their master to set the trap. However, the terrifying boss swings its giant spiked club, destroying dozens of soldiers with a single blow of utterly insane raw force. Even seeing his summons get crushed, the MC maintains composure, kicking off the conversion of his warriors into suicide bomber skeletons. The goblin's massive pink eye glows intensely through the cave dust, demonstrating wild fury and a lethal focus directed at the youth. The creature lets out a terrifying roar that makes the walls tremble, swinging its club at high speeds straight toward the MC. The kid gets startled upon realizing he was picked up by the elite monster despite being positioned far back behind the soldier's defensive line. The colossal club strikes the ground with absurd violence, triggering a massive explosion of rock debris that swallows the entire area where Pluto stood. The monster roars triumphantly, believing it managed to flatten the insolent intruder with that strike of absolute physical force. However, the kid manages to slip past certain death by quickly triggering his incorporeal form, allowing the attack to pass straight through his body. He snaps back to normal, commenting that it was way too close, and that he would be completely dead if not for his secret intangibility skill. Catching his breath, the necromancer cracks a sadistic ear-to-ear smile, announcing it is now his turn to attack, triggering his death stare. The colossal red eye opens in the cave ceiling, paralyzing the massive green monster with terror through the power of the kid's terrifying mental skill. The dungeon boss falls into a state of absolute fear, freezing in terror, while the dangerous skeletons carrying explosive barrels approach it. Pluto glares at the paralyzed creature, comparing the scenario by saying the monster is nothing more than easy ingredients waiting on his cutting board. The kid arrogantly declares he himself is the head chef, commanding his army of suicide bomber skeletons to leap onto the opponent. With a cold smile of someone who knows he has already won, the youth issues the final command for the terrible detonation chain to begin once and for all. He sarcastically wishes it bon appetit while his creatures run with lit barrels, ready to explode glued to the giant. An overwhelming chain of detonations swallows the monster's entire body as it screams in pain amidst the flames of that terrible trap. Fire and smoke take over the entire area, while the once-feared dungeon boss begins collapsing to the ground, lacking the strength to withstand the assault. The colossal goblin drops dead onto the rocky floor, kicking up dust while the system confirms victory, awarding 12,500 experience points. Pluto looks at the massive fallen body, finding it odd the boss died so easily, as he expected to face a terrible war of attrition there. He complains disappointed with the tiny experience received, noting from his status screen that he failed to level up even after taking down the boss. The MC holds his magic scythe firmly, scanning the area suspiciously, sensing something is very wrong there in the cave. The kid recalls that in all standard rifts he cleared in the past, a system screen would pop up confirming the successful completion of the location. But the dungeon clear alert didn't pop up this time, causing him to formulate a new, highly dangerous theory regarding that place's secrets. The youth's eyes widen as he realizes the only logical explanation for the system's silence is that this cave holds multiple elite bosses. He recalls school textbooks warning that some dungeons conceal multiple leaders and that clearing all of them is required to exit. Pluto fixes his gaze on the deep darkness of the tunnel, knowing the true final threat is waiting for him further ahead at the end of the cave. Terrifying footsteps begin echoing again from the shadows, revealing a fresh army of green monsters is already positioned to defend it. Spotting the new wave of opponents, the MC realizes seriously that all enemies in that deep zone are elite goblin warriors. Showing zero hesitation, the youth commands his skeletal soldiers to charge full force to shatter that new defensive line through sheer strength. The undead slice through the goblins quickly, and Pluto notes the elite volume jumped significantly, signaling they are near the final boss. Suddenly, an insanely powerful roar echoes from the end of the dungeon, revealing giant, monstrous silhouettes amidst the darkness. The necromancer fixes his gaze ahead, knowing full well the true, feared final boss of the level 15 cave is positioned right there. Pluto smiles excitedly upon seeing the sheer size of those massive monsters, realizing once and for all that all previous goblins were just the tip of the iceberg. 3 giant, colossal, elite goblins emerge roaring loudly, fully revealing the true magnitude of the threat hidden in the rift. One of the massive creatures halts its roar, scanning the area, confused as it catches the unexpected scent of an intruder in the middle of the dungeon. The colossal green monster locks its glowing eyes in Pluto's direction, growling terrifyingly as it confirms it found a human there. The kid's eyes widen upon realizing that instead of just one final boss, he will have to face 3 colossal monsters simultaneously to win. To make matters even worse, the leader trio roars loudly, summoning an army of over 100 green henchmen to shred the MC. Pluto looks at his mana bar sitting near half, realizing he will need to manage his resources exceptionally well to defeat so many enemies at once. The enraged boss roars with all its strength, ordering the entire pack to advance unmercifully to crush and tear the MC apart on the spot. The green lackeys sprint at high speeds, screaming they will devour the human intruder while prepping their heavy weapons to launch the massacre. With zero time to hesitate over energy drain, the youth draws his magic scythe, ordering his entire skeletal army to charge into combat. The colossal giants swing their heavy weapons with extreme violence, flattening the front line of Pluto's summons with zero difficulty. One of the massive green leaders raises its giant stone club, prepping a crushing strike against the few skeletons still standing. The brutal impact of the stone weapon destroys Pluto's summons instantly, scattering bone shards across the dark cave floor. The surviving skeletons try everything to hold back the enemy's push, utilizing iron shields to attempt to block the monster's raw strength. But the colossal goblin's blows are far too powerful, disintegrating the MC's defenses with alarming and dangerous ease. Amidst the chaos, the giant monsters reveal such insane bloodlust that they begin attacking and flattening their own green allies mid-fight. Pluto realizes the strength gap between standard soldiers and level 10 leaders is far too massive to bridge through basic brawling alone. He calculates his remaining energy won't hold up to continuous paralysis usage, but remembers leveling up will restore part of his total mana. The MC knows full well that if his energy bar drains completely before he levels up, his death in the cave will be absolute certainty. With few strategic options left, the kid decides to gamble everything on a single, extremely risky play, advancing full force against his opponents. The massive red circle of the death stare appears in the air, spreading a contagious aura of terror over the dark dungeon's 3 powerful leaders. Capitalizing on the enemy's paralysis, the MC announces it is time for his finest warrior to shine, prepping to cast the summon. Archer materializes on the battlefield wrapped in a sparkling blue mist, wielding his beautiful epic quality bow, ready to obey his master. Pluto commands a focused attack on a single target, knowing each powerful shot from Archer will consume a chunk of his own magic energy bar. The MC orders focus fire on the left leader first, taking advantage of the creature still being under the fear effect from Death's Stare. Following that, he uses his conversion skill to turn fallen skeletons into dangerous suicide bombers ready to blow up the opponent. A massive fire explosion strikes the left leader dead center, creating a huge column of black smoke, consuming the entire area around it. The monster burns intensely under the continuous magic gunpowder fire, unable to pull off any defensive action due to the paralysis. The system confirms the death of the first of 3 colossal bosses, awarding another 12,500 experience points to the MC. Pluto celebrates upon seeing he sits at 98% progress toward leveling up, but notices with concern his magical energy is nearly zeroed out. The youth orders Archer to fire on the second boss, but every arrow consumed drains his remaining mana until leaving the MC completely empty. Pluto's magical energy hits absolute zero, causing the youth to lose his strength and collapse to his knees on the stone floor, completely defenseless. With 0 mana to summon or defend himself, the youth realizes in terror that this slip-up could mean his permanent end right then and there. The second boss capitalizes on the kid's moment of weakness, bringing down its giant stone club with full force to flatten the helpless MC. The destructive blow slices through the air at extreme speeds, but the MC manages to dodge in the final millisecond, displaying impressive reflexes. Pluto screams desperately for backup from Archer, who rapidly draws his magic bowstring, aiming straight at the massive enraged monster's head. The skeletal sniper fires a devastating blue light arrow that slices through the cave air at high speeds toward the green opponent's skull. The energy projectile pierces the second elite monster's skull, spraying blood across the wall, permanently taking out the giant. The death of the second boss is confirmed by the system, securing another massive 12,500 experience point reward for the youth. The experience points prove sufficient to finally push the MC up to level 12, instantly restoring 30% of his mana. The final colossal boss roars in hatred, seeing its comrades dead, smashing the ground with its spiked club, carving a massive crack into the floor. Pluto manages to slip past that ground attack by a hair, utilizing the fresh energy from level 12 to escape the area quickly. The young man breathes a sigh of relief, commenting that had he taken 1 second longer to level up, he wouldn't have had enough mana to go intangible. The last colossal goblin stands confused, realizing its strongest club strike hit nothing but air, searching for the kid through the dust. Floating in the air in his incorporeal form, the MC cracks a sinister smile, celebrating his luck in restoring his full magic energy. With a fully filled mana stock, the youth fixes his killer red-eyed glare on the green monster, warning it is now its turn to take a beating. Activating his death stare with full force, Pluto generates a massive red eye in the cave sky to paralyze the final remaining boss. The massive elite goblin freezes completely upon getting struck by the terrifying mental spell, trembling in fear, unable to perform any action. The necromancer points at the paralyzed opponent's head, issuing the ultimate command for Archer to wrap up that battle once and for all. The elite marksman-class skeleton draws its magic bowstring, proudly stating it will execute its beloved master's command right away. The light arrow pierces the last colossal goblin's head, killing the monster instantly, yielding another 12,500 experience points for Pluto. The MC stands impressed by Archer's devastating power, realizing he can take down same-level enemies with a single precise shot. He concludes his evolved soldiers vastly outclass standard versions and even elite dungeon monsters when operating at the same level. The young man plans to use his remaining 4 evolution slots with extreme care to build the most powerful undead army on the planet. The system screen confirms for the necromancer that he holds exactly 4 available transformations to use on his skeletal army. The few goblins still remaining in the area begin shaking and whimpering in terror as they find themselves surrounded by Pluto's terrifying summons. The MC remarks with contempt that he won't show them an ounce of mercy, since all dungeon creatures serve merely as fuel for his growth. In a cold, authoritative tone, the young necromancer gives the final order for his soldiers to finish off every survivor left there. Archer draws another light arrow in his bow, prepping to start firing, but gets stopped mid-motion by the MC. Pluto places a hand on his elite soldier's bow, calmly instructing him to rest up and leave the cleanup of weaker monsters to the standard army. He knows Archer's special shots are insanely powerful, but realizes the constant drain of magic energy burns through his bar very quickly. The youth calculates that maintaining an entire army of evolved dead would consume more energy than his mana bar can replenish upon leveling up. Pluto establishes that his top priority moving forward will be hunting down high-tier gear capable of drastically expanding his magic capacity. While the master reflects, his standard skeletal soldiers finish off the last elite goblin, racking up more points toward the MC's growth. The system notifies the successful completion of the dungeon, and Pluto prepares to collect the valuable loot dropped by the over 100 defeated monsters. A massive rain of blue light begins blanketing the cave, signaling the long-awaited moment to gather all the high-tier dungeon rewards. Outside, 2 injured hunters complain after nearly dying on level 9, swearing never again to attempt that mode without an elite party. One of them looks toward the cave entrance, wondering what became of that student who entered solo to tackle the dangerous doomsday mode. The warrior chuckles, stating the kid likely bit the dust and snuck out quietly through the corners if he isn't stretched out dead on the floor by now. Suddenly, the dungeon's colossal bell begins ringing thunderously, echoing 3 violent tolls that leave everyone present in complete shock. The hunters jump, remembering that 3 bell tolls officially signal an all-time historical world record was just shattered by someone. One of the men stands jaw dropped in utter amazement, unable to believe he witnessed a world record getting shattered right before his eyes. They excitedly rush over to see who the legendary team is, believing the record-breaking group must consist of high-level warriors and tanks. The rift panel reveals Pluto cleared the cave completely solo on Doomsday difficulty, leaving the entire lobby crowd in absolute shock. People begin pushing aggressively, wanting an autograph from the supposed hero, imagining the record breaker must be a stunning elite mage. The teleportation portal begins glowing with a massive red light, signaling the triumphant exit of the Doomsday Dungeon's new legendary warrior. Pluto exits the portal complaining about his terrible luck, as all the rare drops turned out to be heavy gear for warriors and tanks. The youth's inventory screen displays a massive pile of heavy weapons, armor, and shiny shields that are completely useless for his class. The MC suddenly catches a strange noise, looking up in surprise, failing to understand the reason behind so much movement at the dungeon exit. He walks straight into a massive crowd of hunters staring at him in dead silence, eyes wide with deep admiration and shock. Completely awkward and confused, the young necromancer gulps, asking himself mentally what on earth is wrong with those people there. The lobby's silence quickly gives way to deafening chatter as all the adventurers try to get closer to see the new world record holder. The adventurers shout in disbelief, noticing the legendary warrior who broke the world record rules is merely a young, ordinary student. Some comment disappointedly that they expected to see a muscular giant or a beautiful elite female mage instead of a skinny kid in a school uniform. Pluto gets a drop of sweat on his forehead, failing to understand any of those bizarre talks about attractive mages or muscular giants the crowd is making up. Another adventurer yells at the group to shut their mouths, reminding them that the kid's appearance doesn't matter, considering he just broke an all-time global record. Several hunters surround the kid, shoving cell phones in his face to request his contact info and beg him to carry them through high-level dungeons. Annoyed by all that sudden noise and harassment, the youth begins pushing through the crowd, wanting nothing more than to find a quiet spot. He runs off down the hallways, asking himself why people are staring at him as if he were some rare species of alien that just landed on Earth. Finally managing to shake off the noisy crowd, the MC sighs in relief upon finding an empty hallway, pulling his cell phone from his blazer pocket. Pluto decides to call the respectable Elder Crowley to proudly inform him he cleared the Goblin Cave test quickly and flawlessly. Meanwhile, inside the guild office, Crowley tries to convince the president that sending a kid of a few days to tackle Doomsday Mode solo is sheer madness. The Elder argues with concern that losing a genius with such potential over an over-the-top test of strength would be a catastrophe for the nation. The president listens to his advisor's arguments attentively, letting out a tired sigh, asking what the old master suggests doing to protect the kid. Crowley suggests they allow the youth to take at least one elite healer into the dungeon, thereby ensuring his safety in case something goes wrong in the test. He ponders with regret that it would be an extremely painful loss for the country's future to lose a young prodigy of Pluto's tier in such a stupid and tragic way. The president accepts the advice, directly authorizing Pluto to bring just one healer to assist him in the dungeon, making it clear that is the sole exception. The old man thanks the president's sensible decision, guaranteeing he will reach out to the kid as quickly as possible to pass along the new instruction. Crowley knows full well the MC is extremely hasty and impatient, worrying that the kid might step into the dungeon without proper preparation. Without wasting a single second, the Elder grabs his cell phone, immediately dialing to alert the MC about the change in the test. The experienced guild leader waits anxiously while the phone rings, sincerely hoping to get through to the youth before it is too late. Crowley tells Pluto to relax because he already talked to the president and got permission for him to bring a sidekick into the dungeon. The guy then calls back on a phone with a completely shattered screen, trying to calmly explain that things inside took a wild turn. The old man almost has a heart attack on the other end of the line, screaming in disbelief at what he just heard from the young necromancer. Seeing his buddy almost pass out from shock, President Langley asks, worried, what on earth happened that could be so bad? Crowley stutters in total shock, revealing that the kid cleared the entire dungeon all by himself and even broke a world record. The guild leader's reaction couldn't be anything less than jumping out of his chair, wide-eyed, asking if that's actually for real. He gets so hyped that he demands the old man hand over the phone right away so he can personally talk to the country's newest prodigy. Pluto gets left on red, calling out for the old man while the phone gets passed around the association's fancy office. The president picks up the call like a boss and asks straight up if the kid really made it through his insane test. The MC thinks the deep voice on the line sounds weird and asks if he's talking to the top dog of the #1 guild himself. The man breaks into a huge, sharp-toothed grin, praising the kid and saying he was exactly who he expected him to be. Langley mentions that the next step is to meet in person to talk about some super important business. Walking back down the stairs to reality, Pluto asks if he should head straight to guild headquarters to get this sorted out, but the president declines and says he already has the perfect spot and time in mind for a private business meeting off the record. The chosen venue is Sunview, the most expensive restaurant in the country where only billionaires and elite hunters can afford the bill. Arriving at the entrance of this luxury haven, Pluto realizes the president hasn't shown up yet and wonders if he should go in alone or wait. The kid's dilemma starts when he remembers he hasn't sold his dungeon loot yet and only has a lousy 10 gold coins in his pocket. He takes a deep breath and tries to chill, thinking that a guy who slays giant monsters shouldn't be scared of a fancy restaurant. Trying to play it as cool as possible, the hero walks in looking so stiff he resembles a robot that needs WD-40. The hostess greets him politely, asking about his reservation, and he stammers back that he was invited to VIP room #1. The employee almost passes out when she realizes this kid in a basic suit is the special guest President Langley mentioned. She asks to check his status screen, and the system reveals that Pluto is a level 12 necromancer, confirming his identity. With the check passed, the girl instantly changes her tone, clearing the way with top-tier hospitality and inviting him inside. She gets lost in thought, remembering that VIP room #1 is reserved only for top legends and was booked personally by the president. Watching the young man walk away, the girl wonders who on earth this Pluto guy is to have so much clout with the ultra-rich. The manager steps up to guide the hero, mentioning he already received strict instructions from the president to treat him like royalty. They start walking through the main dining room, which is packed with snooty rich folks eating and talking about high society stuff. Sitting at one of the tables is Adrian Blackwood, happily cutting into a pricey steak, without a single clue about what's about to go down. The preppy guy thinks his hitman Cedric must have botched the hit, and is now too embarrassed to show his face. Adrian chuckles to himself, thinking it's only a matter of time before his brother takes out Pluto while he enjoys a high-end feast. At that exact moment, Pluto walks right past his table, and the sound of footsteps makes the arrogant kid look over, curious. Adrian's jaw almost hits his plate when he sees the rival who was supposed to be 6 feet under standing right there, fully alive and well-dressed. He quickly recovers his snobbish attitude and decides that since he can't flex his level, he'll humiliate the MC using the power of money. The rich kid slams his hand on the table to grab attention and starts spitting unprovoked venom right in the middle of the place. He mocks Pluto, asking if he scored some spare change to have the audacity to try dining in such a high-end spot. The manager immediately steps in to see if there's a problem, while Pluto thinks to himself that this guy is a total pain in the neck. Adrian keeps up his arrogant flex, saying the baseline for a table there costs thousands, and private rooms run over 10,000. The manager loses his patience and tells the kid to shut his mouth and watch his tone. Because Pluto is a top-tier VIP guest, the rich boy is completely speechless, trying to process how a broke kid could be considered a special guest. He starts laughing nervously and tells the manager that the MC is just a broke orphan who came straight from the slums. Adrian spews even more hatred, claiming the guy is just a basic guild applicant and nothing more than worthless trash. Sick and tired of the endless trash talk, Pluto starts unleashing a dark, terrifying aura that sends a chill down the spine of everyone nearby. Adrian starts shaking like a leaf and tries to appeal to house rules, reminding him that fights inside are heavily punished by the guilds. The staff member completely freaks out, begging the necromancer to calm down because he'll lose his job if a brawl breaks out there. With an icy cold stare, Pluto asks with total disdain why he should calm down in front of such a meaningless loser. The manager sees his life flash before his eyes, feeling like his high-paying job just went down the drain over this mess. However, the MC gives a slight smirk and says he just wanted to show a neat little detail to his dear classmate. The young man then summons a stunning, glowing magic bow and mockingly asks if his rival recognizes the true owner of that weapon. Adrian recognizes his own brother's blue bow right away and turns ghost pale with horror as he realizes what that actually means. Pluto coldly warns him that the bow's owner was already taken care of by him and dares the rich kid to send more idiots to meet their end. Adrian is totally shattered, panicking as he realizes his level 18 elite assassin was completely wiped out by a rookie. With a swift movement, the hero makes the glowing magic bow vanish into thin air as smoothly as if nothing had even happened. Next, Pluto tells the manager they can head to the private room now, while the worker agrees super happily after dodging a total disaster. Adrian grinds his teeth in pure envy, unable to accept that a low-class applicant has more cash and clout than he does. Driven by blind rage, the rich kid screams the MC's name across the restaurant, drawing the attention of every single customer in the room. Pluto just tilts his head and looks back with a cold stare that would make any normal person shake in their boots instantly. The rich kid yells that he shouldn't feel so safe just because he has big backers, because Blue Dragon isn't the only major guild in the nation. Suddenly, a heavy hand lands on the preppy kid's shoulder, and a dark voice asks if he's really daring to disrespect their guild right there. Annoyed by the sudden interruption, the guy pulls out his giant battle axe and spins around furious, wanting to see who the intruder is. He yells, asking who the nerve-driven jerk is to lay hands on him while he's talking to his rival in the middle of the place. But his axe swing is blocked effortlessly by an imposing bronze soldier summoned by the respected Elder Crowley. Adrian recognizes the intimidating metal summons instantly and starts breaking out in a cold sweat, realizing the massive mistake he just made. The Elder reveals himself, eyes blazing with pure rage, warning that publicly slandering the guild and attacking the vice president are serious crimes. The cowardly kid drops his weapon on the floor out of sheer panic, stammering a desperate apology and saying he didn't know who he was. Crowley warns that any ordinary person would have been severely injured by that blow and decides he's going to teach the kid a painful lesson. Adrian tries to hide behind the venue's rules, claiming that even the guild's vice president isn't allowed to fight inside. The elder just looks sideways with a sarcastic smirk as a massive, imposing figure emerges from the shadows, questioning the rules. The legendary President Langley walks calmly toward the troublemaker, declaring with all the authority in the world that he himself is the law. The arrogant kid swallows hard and stands completely frozen in terror, realizing he's face to face with one of the biggest legends in the country. Without giving him a single chance to defend himself, the president charges an insane amount of electrical energy into his glowing, destructive fist. With a single devastating strike, he hits the preppy kid dead on, setting off a shockwave that makes the whole restaurant structure shake. The impact is so violent that Adrian goes flying right through the giant plate glass window, launching into the street amid a shower of glass. Langley calmly dusts off his hands, stating that Pluto is their special guest, and any trash who messes with him will end up the exact same way. Outside, pedestrians walking down the sidewalk get the shock of their lives seeing a fancy dressed-up kid launched from the building. Adrian is laid out cold in the middle of the street, completely knocked out and smoking from his mouth, while onlookers yell for an ambulance. The crowd looks up in shock, recognizing the top two leaders of the country's greatest guild standing right at the broken second-story window. People start gossiping in total disbelief that the average student who was arguing with the rich kid is actually their VIP guest. Inside, the restaurant manager takes a deep breath, trying not to pass out from panic after witnessing part of his luxury dining hall get wrecked. The staff member rushes over to bow dramatically to the guild's top leaders, greeting them in the most buttered-up way possible. Langley ignores the groveling and says they're going straight to the private room, leaving the cleanup of all that mess in the manager's hands. Sweating buckets, the man assures them he'll take care of absolutely everything with total discretion, asking the guests not to worry. The manager immediately orders his staff to clean up the broken glass, clear out the main room, and get that kid to the hospital. As they walk, the president glances at Pluto, extremely impressed that he soloed the Doomsday Dungeon. He notices the young man walked out of the trial without a single scratch on his body, his student clothes perfectly clean and crisp. Crowley breaks the silence, suggesting they head inside to eat before all the delicious food gets cold on the table. Pluto gets lost in thought, remembering the elder's killer instinct, realizing that behind that nice grandpa look lies an absolute monster. Crowley compliments the guy, saying he blew past all expectations by walking away unscathed from such an insane challenge for his level. But the hero knows he almost kicked the bucket in there, only surviving because he leveled up right on time after running completely out of mana. They finally arrive before the massive double doors of VIP room number 1, where the most luxurious feasts in the nation are served to the elite. The elder reassures the kid, telling him not to worry about exhaustion because his mana bar is going to overflow real soon in there. The doors swing open, revealing a giant table stacked with the most expensive and eye-popping spreads the young student has ever seen. The MC stands open-mouthed, noting that the flawless presentation of every dish screams wealth, even without knowing the crazy reservation cost. The vice president places a friendly hand on the kid's shoulder, telling him super casually to pick any seat at the table. After sitting down, Crowley encourages Pluto to dig in without holding back, since everything was prepared specifically for his arrival. He reveals he instructed the kitchen to make every buff food item available for hunters, knowing the kid's mana would be sitting at 0. Crowley explains that certain support hunters can cook magical food that gives insane boosts to speed, strength, defense, and mana. The system shows that consuming these special dishes grants warriors wild temporary buffs across all their combat stats. Pluto listens closely, finally understanding why there's an entire class dedicated just to cooking specialized dishes for adventurers. The old man offers a juicy piece of cooked monster meat, promising that rare dish will massively boost his energy regeneration rate. The second he swallows the meat, the hero feels his magic tank refill at full power while a blue aura wraps around him. Crowley explains that the effects of magical dishes are temporary, but guarantees the impact on stats is downright absurd. The elder serves up another exotic dish, warning that the explosive red pepper is great for crazy boosts to physical strength. He keeps showing off other wild foods, explaining that each one serves to boost speed, defense, or hunter stamina. Wasting no time, the young man starts shoveling everything in sight into his mouth, scarfing it down like crazy without giving a hoot about rich guy manners. Completely stuffed, Pluto relaxes in his chair, feeling like he turned into a superhuman with every stat multiplier maxed out. Seeing that their guest finished eating, President Langley wipes his mouth with a napkin and announces it's time to talk real business. The leader congratulates the kid on passing the test, officially declaring him the newest elite member of the famous Blue Dragon Guild. But he drops a warning, saying they'll keep his identity hidden from the public to prevent hunters from rival nations from trying to take him out. The MC listens in silence, simply nodding along, agreeing that keeping a low profile is the smartest move for his own safety. With a dead serious look, President Langley leans on the table and asks if the young necromancer has any idea who their real enemies are. Pluto answers that the only thing he knows from regular news is that neighboring nations have always shown hostile rivalry toward their country. The leader confirms that neighboring countries are terrifying threats, sneaking ruthless assassins in to eliminate any promising hunter that pops up. The elder explains that if the enemies find out the kid breaks class limits and creates solo armies, they'll do whatever it takes to drop him. Pluto clenches his fist in anger, wondering to himself why on earth nations across every different world always seem obsessed with war. Crowley notices the kid's drastic shift in stance and feels, for the very first time, an insanely terrifying killer intent radiating from him. The seasoned elder calmly notes that while war between humans is dangerous, it's still not the worst threat haunting humanity. The young necromancer's eyes go wide in surprise, unable to imagine what could possibly be worse than entire nations fighting to the death. The president confirms the severity of the situation, asking if the MC is genuinely prepared to uncover the dark truth of the planet. Pluto keeps a steady posture, showing he's ready to handle any secret, no matter how dangerous or terrifying it might be. Langley explains that in the eyes of an unknown race, the human world is nothing more than a giant hunting ground, waiting for harvest time. The kid gets super unsettled by that bizarre revelation, asking straight up what the president means by a hunting ground. The leader explains there are two types of rifts in the world, the first being blessing rifts, where hunters step in to train and level up. Pluto gets intrigued by the reveal and curiously asks what the big difference would be between that common type and the other kind of rift. The president holds up 3 fingers, stating that blessing rifts differ from the feared calamity rifts by 3 crucial factors. The first factor is that blessing rifts only pop up in a controlled way when warriors use a special key at whatever location they want. On the flip side, calamity rifts spawn completely at random, potentially opening out of nowhere in the middle of mountains, dense forests, or even cities. The second factor is that inside regular rifts, monsters always have a balanced strength level tailored to the hunter's levels. But in calamity rifts, the monsters have completely random levels and are infinitely stronger than any creature from a normal rift. Pluto starts connecting the dots fast, realizing that the beasts coming out of these calamity rifts are absolute unstoppable killing machines. The president then raises his index finger, warning with a grave look that the third factor is by far the most dangerous and nerve-wracking of them all. He explains that in normal rifts, warriors choose when they want to enter, and the monsters inside can never break out into reality. However, in calamity rifts, demon beasts can freely walk through the portal to invade and destroy the human world. The MC is left in shock, realizing that cruel beasts can invade cities and turn everyday people into prey at any given moment. Langley confirms the kid's logic, saying that's precisely why the planet is viewed as merely a vast hunting ground for monsters. The young man concludes that these rogue rifts pose a way bigger threat to their survival than any enemy nation ever could. But the president shakes his head, warning that smaller rifts are just a headache, while true human despair comes from something far worse. He reveals that every 10 years, a colossal rift 1 kilometer high tears open the sky, spawning hundreds of calamity portals. It's through this giant portal that the Demon King descends to wipe out humanity, forcing nations to fight in terrible rift wars. President Langley stares at the kid seriously, revealing that the next major rift war is projected to break out in just 1 year. Pluto gets startled by such a short deadline, asking why he's never read a single thing about this war in school textbooks. The elder explains that exposing a nightmare like that would cause widespread panic among the public, so governments chose to hide the truth. The guy thinks it over for a few seconds, asking if the battlefield for the next global catastrophe will be their very own nation. The revelation leaves both the elder and the imposing president totally petrified, unable to utter a single word out of shock. Crowley breaks the silence uneasily, asking the young necromancer how on earth he managed to figure out such a guarded state secret. The kid responds that he could clearly feel the massive nervousness and deep anxiety both leaders were hiding in their souls. Langley's eyes widen, realizing the kid's crazy sharp perception easily picked up on his most hidden feelings. He admits the guy is insanely sharp, praising his ability to see right through the cool mask he thought he was wearing. Pluto stares at the reflection in his drink, whispering to himself that he knows that anxious feeling all too well because of his past. He remembers his previous life on Earth, where he faced a horrible war and had to fake being calm while shaking with fear on the inside. Langley asks curiously what the kid just muttered, and the guy plays it off nervously, hoping he didn't say his thoughts out loud. Pluto covers it up, saying he just guessed the location from their reactions, but follows up by asking how the leaders predicted the war so far ahead. The elder reveals that there's a totally neutral international organization that answers to no country, known as the Oculus Guild. The old man details that this society recruits hunters with the most powerful prophetic gifts on the planet to sell exact predictions for profit. The Oculus Guild can predict the exact location of a colossal rift 2 years in advance, giving nations time to prepare for the worst. The guy reflects worriedly that if their country gets swallowed by the Rift War, nothing will stop enemy nations from striking them at a weak moment. Crowley calms the kid down, explaining there's an absolute law forbidding any nation from attacking the country currently hosting the Rift War. Pluto finally gets why the military tension with the neighboring country suddenly vanished, replaced by total silence along the borders. Langley adds that even without that rule, all countries would tone down attacks, needing to focus their resources on war prep. The MC asks out of curiosity if humanity has ever tried flipping the script and going through a rift to invade the monster world. The guild president's expression shifts instantly, staring at the guy with a dark, silent look that makes it clear he's not joking around. Crowley loses his patience, shouting at the kid to drop that crazy idea, since just repelling the Demon King already costs human lives. The old man recalls that during the last Rift War, the Blue Dragon Guild lost 70% of its elite members, almost getting wiped out entirely. Hearing the scary story, the young necromancer realizes he was super naive to even think about invading dangerous calamity monster territory. President Langley softens his tone, stating with confidence that all of that is in the past, assuring that with Pluto around, things will be different. He states that the kid's infinite summoning skill will be the game changer to guarantee the nation's victory in the upcoming Rift War. The leader wraps up dramatically, saying Pluto's unique power has the amazing ability to alter an entire nation's fate in the face of destruction. Langley offers 1 year of prep, promising total, unconditional support from the entire Blue Dragon Guild so the kid can level up as much as possible. Wasting no time, the president looks aside, giving the ultimate order for the elder to bring out the special package they set up for the hero. Crowley slams a heavy black briefcase onto the restaurant table with a thud, catching the young man's attention as he watches curiously. The guy asks, intrigued, what's inside the bag, and the elder responds with a proud smile that those are the official guild welcome gifts. With a click, Pluto pops the briefcase latches, his eyes sparkling as he's hit by a bright light shining from the treasures inside. The MC is left totally stunned, coming face to face with a collection of legendary artifacts, asking if all of that is really his. Crowley introduces the first item, explaining it's a legendary pendant called the Phoenix Eye, considered the president's most prized treasure. The system reveals that the Phoenix Eye lets the user instantly teleport to the side of any other holder of this legendary item. The elder points out that legendary gear usually comes with strict level caps, but highlights that this rare necklace can be equipped at level 1. Pluto is amazed, realizing he's holding an insanely useful item that allows emergency escapes or instant transport anywhere. Langley reveals the necklace is an ultra-rare item with only 6 units worldwide, used by top leaders of the 5 major guilds for emergency meetings. Worried about the leader's generosity, Pluto asks if the president won't end up unprotected by handing over such a valuable item. The guild boss flashes a confident smile, telling him not to worry since Blue Dragon received 2 pendants for being the strongest of the 5. He explains that for security reasons, the kid's pendant is linked only to his, meaning only the president can teleport to him. The guy realizes he just scored the strongest bodyguard in the nation, but remembers the pendant has a long cooldown and must be used wisely. Crowley introduces the second item, proudly explaining it's a legendary ring he won during his younger battle days. The system reveals that the level 1 Moonlight Ring grants 100 mana boost and doubles skill power under a full moon. Without wasting a second, the young necromancer slips the legendary ring onto his finger, instantly feeling a connection to its awesome magic power. A purple aura surrounds the hero, and his max mana bar jumps instantly from 150 to 250. The elder mentions that mages need tons of energy, and the guy happily agrees, thinking that massive mana boost is perfect for his summons. The old man's expression flips suddenly, warning in a scary tone that he wore that ring for over 10 years and will be furious if the kid loses it. Pluto breaks into a cold sweat at the elder's creepy threat, laughing nervously as he promises to guard the precious ring with his life if needed. The old man then presents the blessing keys, and the kid gets hyped seeing something familiar, thinking he can finally use them to level up. But to Pluto's surprise, the old man quickly snatches the golden keys back out of his hand, leaving the guy standing there looking like a total fool. Crowley grumpily explains that blessing keys are super rare, and the entire guild only has 9 of them locked away under tight security. The guy asks when he should use them, and the elder explains that high-level Blessing Rift monsters drop way more XP and valuable loot. He advises the kid to save the keys for when he hits a wall at a high level to maximize the gains, and the guy takes the advice. The young man explains that his goal is to level up as fast as possible, asking if the leaders have any other training recommendations for him. The vice president flashes a knowing grin, revealing that he and the president already prepped the nation's most perfect and dangerous training spot for him. It's the Apex Temple, a massive training facility built through a joint effort by the country's top 5 elite guilds. Pluto remembers hearing about that legendary place, famous for having the widest dungeon variety, top-tier difficulty, and the absolute best rewards. Hyped for the golden opportunity, the guy says he can't wait to start wrecking monsters, asking how to get to the temple. Crowley holds out a glowing crystal, explaining that teleportation gem lets him travel instantly to any temple. The president advises the kid to head to room 3 first, which has challenges scaled for levels 10 to 25, tailored for new elite recruits. Pluto states he's already in peak physical shape and totally ready to clear the high-level dungeons at the sacred temple. President Langley looks at him seriously, giving a final piece of advice to exercise extra caution the second he steps foot in there. The kid nods, saying he knows very well that elite-level challenges are infinitely harder than standard dungeons. But the leader drops a wild warning, telling Pluto to worry more about the arrogant hunters in the lobby than the actual monsters. He explains that every warrior at the temple is a prodigy from the nation's top 5 guilds, and they'll definitely try to push the new guy around. Langley makes a strange personal request, begging Pluto not to go hard on them, knowing the other kids wouldn't stand a chance. The MC gives an awkward smile, reassuring the boss he won't beat up the spoiled rich kids and will try his best to ignore them. The president instructs the guy to just flash the golden crystal if he gets cornered, since any hunter knows the massive weight behind that symbol. With gifts delivered and the deal sealed, the leader says goodbye, telling the kid to use the legendary pendant if a real emergency goes down. Pluto looks at his new treasures glowing in his hands, feeling extremely grateful and ready to launch his level-up marathon. The young necromancer says a respectful goodbye, promising not to let their trust down as a beam of magic light starts covering him. That very second, a colossal beam of blue energy cuts through the sky and hits the restaurant, teleporting the MC straight to the sacred temple. The magic portal wipes the private room's physical space clean, leaving behind only a trail of cosmic dust where the kid stood seconds ago. The guild president silently watches the blue sparks vanish into the ceiling, holding his imposing stance as he reflects on the kid. Crowley thoughtfully comments that he's super hyped to see just how powerful the young necromancer will be by their next meeting. Langley states his growth is inevitable, but stresses that first, they need to clear out any obstacles in the young prodigy's path. The seasoned elder Crowley catches the drift right away, asking if the president is referring to the hit put out on Pluto. The leader confirms it, revealing that guild intelligence officially identified the guy who hired the elite assassin. He reveals with contempt that the culprit behind all that dirt is none other than the arrogant kid he just tossed through the window. Crowley smirks, saying he now gets why a refined man lost his cool so violently against a young, rich student. The old man notes that since this involves Pluto, they can't be careless, asking if the probe into the rich kid's background is finished. Langley shares that the kid is an A-rank hunter, but says his dad is just a regular businessman with zero weight in the hunter world. However, he points out the only dangerous exception in that snobby family is the preppy kid's older brother, who serves as a captain in White Tiger. Crowley considers that a captain is no big deal, but recalls that White Tiger's leader is infamous for having a terrible temper and being super protective. President Langley's expression shifts, unleashing a terrifying aura, promising no one in the world will stop them from taking out threats to Pluto. The elder watches his superior's ruthless drive totally unbothered, asking what the immediate game plan is for the case. The leader gives the cold command, calling for Adrian Blackwood's instant capture, making it clear the spoiled preppy kid must be detained no matter what. He clenches his fist hard, ordering straight up that if the kid dares resist arrest in any way, he's to be taken out on the spot. Crowley accepts the mission without second thoughts, promising to handle the kid's capture operation personally since it involves his hero. Langley thanks him for the help, ordering the arrest to be made loud and proud so everyone knows it was done in Blue Dragon's name. The old man gets ready to leave, channeling his massive magic power as a circle of glowing runes spawns on the floor beneath his feet. Crowley realizes the president's true intent is to draw all the enemy family's hate and revenge straight onto Blue Dragon's back. Langley knows Pluto is still young and fragile, deciding their guild will willingly take on all the danger to protect the nation's future. Meanwhile, in Rift Room number 3 at the Apex Temple, a massive crowd of elite hunters gathers throughout the giant marble hallways. Multiple adventurers shout out looking for elite partners to build raid squads focused on level 10 and 15 dungeons on heroic difficulty. Walking through the main lobby, Pluto is blown away by the grand scale of the sacred place and the sheer amount of people gathered there. The guy looks at his own hand, remembering his sole goal is to level up as fast as possible to unlock new system skills. He wonders which dungeon would give quick XP, complaining to himself that testing them one by one would be a total waste of time. Suddenly, a friendly young girl wearing a classic witch hat walks up to the MC, complimenting his looks and asking if he's new around there. The MC nods, and the girl introduces herself as Layla Shaw, explaining she works as a dungeon guide on the side to make a quick buck. Suspicious, Pluto asks what the catch behind her kindness is, and the girl laughs awkwardly, revealing she charges 1 gold coin per question answered. He remembers he hasn't sold his valuable loot yet and only has 10 coins in his pocket, but decides to drop one to get legit info. Pluto flips the gold coin in the air, asking the guide straight up which dungeon in the hall gives the absolute max XP cap. Layla snatches the cash skillfully, surprised by the kid's boldness, asking to double-check if he really wants to face the most insane challenge there. She explains that since a hunter's level can't be more than 3 levels apart, the top challenge for him at level 12 would be a level 15 dungeon. The guide reveals the prime dungeon is the Abyss Spider Nest at level 15, but makes a face, warning he'll have to wait a long time to get in. Pluto asks why he'd have to wait, and the girl explains the nest is packed with tiny monsters, attacking non-stop from all sides. The kid brushes it off, saying he doesn't wait for anyone, and the guide gets startled, asking if he already has a specialized team to back him up. She points her finger across the lobby, showing off a high-geared elite team assembled specifically to tackle the spiders. Pluto looks over at the crowd, seeing the blue portal glowing bright, while the girl hypedly announces that legendary team just broke the record. Outside, the elite squad that just walked out of the rift is covered in blood, with one warrior screaming for a healer to save his eye. Layla points at the injured guys, asking if the MC really thinks his hunt squad could do a better job than them. Pluto keeps walking calmly toward the sacred portal, answering coldly that he doesn't have a team riding with him. The young necromancer turns his head sideways with the most serene look in the world, revealing he's tackling the scary spider nest completely solo. The dungeon guide almost has a total meltdown, screaming in sheer panic, unable to believe the kid wants to attempt a solo run like that. The main lobby of the temple goes dead quiet for a few seconds, as all the elite hunters around stare at the guy in complete disbelief. Pluto thinks all that sudden noise is weird, and the young girl awkwardly apologizes, turning bright red out of embarrassment for yelling like that. The elite warriors start laughing in his face, mocking him and saying the spider nest isn't some walk-in-the-park difficulty. The little witch apologizes again for shouting, but Pluto answers calmly, saying he's used to people doubting him. Layla begs the guy not to pull a suicidal move like that, but the MC simply thanks her for the valuable info and keeps walking toward the portal. The info screen reveals the dungeon holds over 1,000 terrifying monsters, recommending high-level teams of up to 10 people to enter. Reading that the place is crawling with over 1,000 nasty creatures, Pluto lets out a sigh and locks his gaze on the challenge with pure drive. The kid calculates that the XP gains inside will be insane, getting super hyped to level up as fast as humanly possible. Since it's his first time taking on so many monsters at once, he decides to play it safe, picking heroic difficulty just to test the waters. The injured hunters watch the scene, commenting angrily that the rookie must be totally nuts and blind to challenge that dungeon alone. One of the S-rank warriors scoffs, saying even he wouldn't dare enter alone, swearing the C-class kid won't last 5 minutes in there. Stepping through the portal, Pluto comes face to face with a super dark, creepy cave, with giant spider webs covering all the stone walls. The hero walks carefully through the area, complaining about the unbearable smell of rot while hearing gross crawling noises on the ceiling. Without wasting a single second, he pulls out his epic staff and summons his army of standard skeleton soldiers to sweep the cave. Hundreds of tiny spiders start crawling out of the rock cracks, and the MC gives a side smirk, thinking dinner just served itself up. The undead warriors take the front line, ready for combat, as the creatures start piling up in insane numbers. With a firm command from Pluto, the skeleton soldiers charge in full force, launching a total massacre against the endless horde of abyss spiders. The summons start throwing quick swings, slicing dozens of tiny monsters in half while the hero's XP bar starts climbing non-stop. The system screen starts logging consecutive spider hatchling kills, dropping 25 XP points for every beast taken down. However, the tiny creatures are smart, starting to swarm and cling to the skeleton soldiers' bones, locking up their joints. Pluto realizes his regular warriors are getting pinned fast by the absurd volume of hatchlings, swarming their bodies continuously. The little pests start gnawing on and smashing the summoned skulls, and the MC realizes those tiny monsters are more annoying than they look. Luckily, he remembers he has other tactical plays, deciding infantry skeletons aren't the move for dealing with tiny swarms. The necromancer activates his special gunpowder skill, turning regular soldiers into terrifying bomber skeletons packed with explosive barrels. A skeleton rushes right into the middle of the horde, blowing up in a massive, devastating fireball that sweeps away dozens of hatchlings in one shot. The hero calculates excitedly that the monster density is so high that clearing this dungeon will yield as much XP as the Goblin Cave. With a snap of his fingers, the guy smirks, realizing this rift packed with tiny prey is the ultimate paradise for his explosive summons. He spawns way more bombers in bulk, knowing normal skeletons would waste way too much time trying to hit such tiny, fast bugs. A deafening string of explosions echoes through the dark cave, turning the spider nest into a literal hellscape of fire and black smoke. The mass bombing run yields so much XP that it levels the hero up instantly, proudly reaching Hunter level 13. He opens his system screen and decides to dump all his fresh stat points directly into intelligence to boost his mana capacity. The status screen confirms Pluto's max mana bumped up to 255 points thanks to the legendary gear bonus. He knows the ring was a massive help, but gets that he still needs way more magic points to unlock the system's next cap break. The guy hears a weird noise from the ceiling, figuring the next upgrade for his summons needs to focus on fixing this mana consumption issue. Suddenly, a colossal spider drops out of the ceiling shadows, shooting a violent blast of sticky webbing straight at the MC's head. With a quick dodge, Pluto manages to slip past the attack by a hair, but walks away super impressed by the power and speed of that deadly web. He looks up and comes face to face with a giant adult abyss spider looming at the top of the cave, ready for its next strike. The guy notices the monster is stuck to the ceiling dozens of feet up, knowing his standard explosive skeletons can't reach it up there. But the hero flashes a confident smile, eyes glowing purple, reminding the enemy he's definitely not fighting alone in there. With a quick command, the necromancer calls out his powerful elite marksman soldier, who spawns amidst a massive blast of purple spiritual energy. Pluto points at the ceiling target, dropping the absolute order for his elite archer to drop the giant beast with a dead-on energy shot. The skeleton soldier draws back the magic bowstring, releasing a colossal arrow of electricity that cuts through the cave air with a deafening boom. The shot hits the spider head-on, blowing the monster up instantly, dropping another valuable 100 XP points for the hero. The beast's massive body falls lifeless to the cave floor, and the guy mentally thanks his setup for having the archer to take care of long-range targets. Pluto analyzes his soldier's bow, thinking that, as an upgraded marksman, the summon should be able to fire off multi-shots. Pluto grips his imposing scythe, telling his elite archer not to let him down in the upcoming battle. He realizes the place is about to turn into a complete bloodbath, with the absurd number of monsters closing in fast. Multiple flaming skulls start floating around them as the guy's mana charges up violently. The young man orders the close-range spiders to be left entirely to his trusty elite bomber skeletons. A massive explosion engulfs the enemies, triggering a shower of XP points on Pluto's system notification screen. The MC watches the black smoke and flames spread through the cave, following his undead army's destructive attack. With a cold look, the necromancer warns that the distant monsters are now exclusive targets for his skeleton archer. The skeleton marksman focuses an absurd amount of magic energy into his glowing arrow, crackling with electric power. The summon shoots the powerful attack high up, lighting up the cave's darkness with its massive, blue, destructive glow. The energy arrow splits in midair, targeting the giant spider horde crawling across the cave's stone ceiling. The system screen pops up a highlighted banner announcing the activation of his elite soldier's magic arrow rain skill. Hundreds of glowing arrows rain down from the ceiling like a deadly storm, hitting every creature crawling across the rocky floor. The precision shots pierce through the gross monster's shells, giving them zero chance to defend or run. Dozens of colossal spiders drop dead, completely cooked by the magic attack's leftover electricity. Pluto thinks to himself that his marksman class isn't just insane against single targets, but has totally broken area of effect damage. The only downside is the crazy mana drain that would empty his energy in just a few shots, even with the legendary ring's bonus. Luckily, all the annoying creatures were cleared out, opening up a path for the MC to finally focus on the real threat of the place. It's time for the guy to face the scary dungeon boss, who's already showing up amid a crazy amount of webs. Outside, a warrior complains impatiently that 20 minutes have passed and the necromancer still hasn't shown his face coming out of the portal. The injured tough guy thinks the kid already bit the dust in there, but his buddy reminds him the system would announce if the solo attempt failed. He then guesses the rookie is huddled in a corner, shaking in fear, but his partner swears there's literally nowhere to hide in there. Shock sets in when they consider the chance that the C-class kid might actually be taking on the entire spider horde all by himself. The warrior yells angrily, saying a basic necromancer could never survive against that monster swarm with just a few skeletons. His thoughtful buddy hates admitting a low-ranked necromancer could clear that dungeon, but something about Pluto's vibe catches his attention. The total confidence the kid showed stepping through the portal gave the warrior a weird gut feeling that he might actually win. He shakes his head thinking it's impossible, because even if the rookie beats the regular monsters, there's still an unstoppable beast inside. The dungeon's biggest threat is the dreaded Empress of the Abyss Spiders, who rules ruthless and supreme in the deep dark of the rift. The colossal beast drops from the ceiling, shattering the ground and making the whole cave shake with its absurd weight right in front of a calm Pluto. The MC admits the monster is even bigger than he imagined, catching a heavy scent of death, radiating off the giant beast. The Empress opens her gross mouth packed with sharp teeth, showing off a giant, sharp tongue ready to devour the invading hero. The monster shoots its tongue at top speed toward the guy, trying to crush the bold kid against the rocks in one move. One of Pluto's skeleton soldiers jumps in with his heavy axe, successfully blocking the colossal creature's violent attack. The guy stays totally unbothered, asking sarcastically if all that aggression is just the friendly way spiders say hello. The necromancer points his energy-infused scythe, deciding to return the monster's warm welcome with his own explosive style. A massive wave of fire engulfs the dungeon boss, making the giant beast let out high-pitched screeches of pain from the powerful counter. The undead army charges with ruthless fury. Landing fast, strikes against the creature's hard shell. One of the skeleton guardians raises his heavy metal shield to block a brutal counterattack from the injured Empress. More flashbang explosions cover the area in fire and black smoke as Pluto's bomber skeletons attack without mercy. The hero admits the beast really lives up to the dungeon boss title, fighting wildly to try and defend against the massacre. With a scary red glow in his eyes, the MC casts a crowd control spell, ordering the Spider Queen to freeze. The fear skill spawns a giant scarlet eye on the cave ceiling, leaving the scary Empress totally paralyzed with terror. Seeing the monster completely helpless, the necromancer walks up casually, knowing the easy part of the fight just started. Pluto locks his eyes with total focus, deciding to just keep bombing the boss non-stop with his army of explosive skeletons. The undead jump all in, carrying their lit powder barrels, triggering an incredible string of colossal blasts in the cave. The Empress is finally slain, handing the MC an insane 35,000 XP points all at once. The stats screen confirms level 14 for the necromancer Pluto, who keeps leveling up at a crazy fast pace. He celebrates that soloing high-level rifts drops insane XP, planning to hit extreme difficulty on his next solo run. There's so much valuable loot scattered across the ground that the young man starts worrying about remaining space in his limited magic inventory. Meanwhile, outside, the impatient archer complains it's been over 30 minutes since the mystery kid went through that portal. The mage warns he can stare at that exit forever, but the necromancer could never beat that challenge solo and walks away. The guy agrees with his partner, sighing as he realizes he was expecting way too much from a hunter who isn't even high rank. He decides not to waste any more time there, running to catch up with his partner, who was already walking away without looking back. Suddenly, a loud, bright noise coming right from the portal makes the hunter stop running and turn around, totally shocked. The guy turns completely pale, realizing the mystery sound means the official dungeon record was just shattered. The whole lobby goes crazy with the news that the record for the terrifying Abyss spider nest was crushed again. Some start wondering if the unbelievable feat was the rookie necromancer's doing, but the other hunters just laugh off the idea. The big system screen announces that the level 14 necromancer Pluto cleared the rift solo on heroic difficulty in record time. Pluto steps out of the sacred portal, returning to the temple super calm and stylish, hands in his pockets like nothing even happened. The warrior who doubted him stands jaw-dropped, confirming the C-rank kid actually broke the record solo. Not getting the sudden silence, the guy wonders if he's got spider webs on his face with everyone staring at him like that. Layla runs over hyped, asking how he pulled off that crazy stunt, and Pluto calmly responds his skeletons handled the whole thing. A jealous, annoyed warrior yells from the crowd, accusing the young man of being a huge liar making up stories. The arrogant hunter steps up, saying it's impossible to summon that many bombers in 20 minutes to clear a nest with thousands of spiders. Pluto looks at the guy with total ice in his eyes, wondering to himself if he's supposed to know who this noisy dude even is. The crowd around starts gossiping, agreeing that a normal necromancer's summon cooldown would make that feat impossible. The warrior keeps up his little sideshow, demanding answers from Pluto and asking why he insists on lying to everyone there. Suddenly, the arrogant guy feels a terrible chill run down his spine, starting to suspect something super dangerous is about to go down. He steps up to the kid with a provoking face, asking if the guy is hiding some dirty secret from the rest of the group. With a dark look that could scare anyone, Pluto summons a terrifying purple energy, asking in a threatening tone if he really wants the truth. The arrogant hunter gets such a huge shock that he takes a massive leap backward to back away from that deadly presence. Shaking with fear, he wonders what that crushing pressure is, realizing from the MC's eyes that the kid has definitely ended lives before. The warrior tries to regain his composure, thinking the necromancer wouldn't be crazy enough to attack him in public and that he'd still have a fighting chance. He points his finger, yelling that everyone there belongs to the big guilds, asking how a mere C rank got access to enter that temple. A blonde female hunter jumps on the bandwagon, suspecting the guy might be an undercover spy from a rival nation sent to sabotage the place. As crazy rumors spread, little Layla cowers in fear behind the hero, not knowing what's about to happen. The gossiping warrior feels super proud of himself, seeing his words manipulate the opinion of everyone around him. The two hunters from earlier watch the scene from afar, laughing at the drama and wondering what the MC will do now that everyone is against him. Pluto summons his skeleton warriors to prove he's legit a necromancer, starting to explain how he got access to the sacred temple. The guy holds out his hand totally calm, showing off the glowing golden teleportation crystal he's carrying. Everyone around panics, recognizing the legendary top authority item reserved exclusively for the leaders of the top 5 guilds. The trash talker swallows hard, dying of fear, while the hero starts walking up the portal stairs to reveal his third answer. Pluto warns with disdain that they can keep guessing who he is, cause he's way too busy leveling up to play detective. The arrogant warrior shakes in terror, realizing that mystery necromancer is someone insanely high up he should have never messed with. The hunter in the green hood watches the guy's imposing stance, super impressed by his rock-solid mindset under that kind of pressure. Pluto reflects that the only reason he didn't beat that idiot to a pulp was because President Langley asked him to keep a low profile during training. The hero sighs in annoyance, wondering if he has some secret passive skill that just draws idiots into his path. He sets the idiots aside, deciding it's time to test his new limits by selecting the scary doomsday difficulty for the dungeon. Outside, the hunter with the bandaged head stares at the brightly glowing magic rift, unable to believe what he's seeing. He tells his teammate in shock that the young necromancer went back into the spider nest on the highest difficulty available. Back in the spider nest, the guy knows the creatures there are tiny and attack in massive packs. The MC walks calmly through the dungeon's dark, backed by his army of skeleton warriors ready for a slaughter. He admits these crawling, overwhelming pests would be a total nightmare for any regular summoner to handle in battle, but with his army of special bomber skeletons, that weak monster horde is actually a huge blessing for him. The skeleton soldier covered in bugs starts glowing bright in red flames, about to trigger a detonation. A colossal explosion wipes out dozens of monsters at once, dropping another wave of easy XP for his bar. The huge amount of stacked points levels the hero up to 15, unlocking 5 fresh attribute points for him to drop. The hero smirks with confidence, seeing the notification that the system removed another one of his power caps after hitting level 15. The system reveals that from here on, every slain creature with mana will permanently increase Pluto's max energy cap. The kid realizes the insane potential of this buff, noting that now both monsters and other humans are just walking mana points. Eyes glowing purple, he stares at the spider swarm, knowing that nest just became the perfect spot to stack infinite power. With a creepy smile on his face, the guy realizes that dungeon full of mana targets is basically his personal paradise. A giant abyss spider charges wildly, making weird noises and sprinting on its sharp legs right toward him. The violent attack grazes past the MC's head, who dodges skillfully without showing a single worry. One of his elite skeleton soldiers pops up fast, throwing a powerful sword slash to decapitate the enemy. The creature's toxic green blood squirts everywhere from the force of the precise strike delivered by Pluto's summon. Another skeleton warrior crushes the monster with a giant axe, securing another 100 XP points for the hero. The system screen notifies that a mana-bearing creature was taken out, dropping the first permanent bonus point into the mangacap. He watches the blue energy flowing through his hands, confirming satisfied that his max mana cap really jumped to 266. The MC turns around dead serious, calling on his skilled elite archer to launch the next attack. The skeleton marksman starts charging his bow with a huge load of blue electricity that crackles aggressively. He fires the colossal arrow up, lighting up the dark dungeon depths with a glowing trail of destructive magic power. A giant magic circle opens up on the cave ceiling, triggering the scary magic arrow rain skill once again. The arrow storm starts wiping out dozens of spiders at once, triggering a waterfall of death notifications on screen. The system confirms the death of 104 more monsters, permanently raising Pluto's mana cap to 470. The kid calculates he'd need to level up 21 times to get that much mana, but scored it all in just a few minutes of fight time. He knows the cap break only raises max mana and not current reserves, but understands the leftover energy is more than enough for the boss. The young man orders his archer to hold fire to save energy, since they still need to handle the dangerous dungeon boss. With a confident move, he mentions his regular bomber skeletons can easily handle wiping out the rest of the monsters. The explosive soldiers charge in carrying lit powder barrels, with creepy grins set on their lifeless skulls. A noisy string of blasts clears out the rest of the path, opening a way for the group to move forward without major delays. Outside, the warriors debate if the rookie can break their record, knowing how terrifying doomsday difficulty really is. The injured elite hunter claims convinced that the difficulty jump is brutal and that the kid would take at least an hour to get out. They barely finish talking when strong, dark energy starts flowing from the portal, showing only half an hour passed since he went in. Meanwhile, inside the rift, a crazy string of blasts completely wrecks the spider nest once and for all. Pluto looks over the totally destroyed area, announcing satisfied that the dungeon clear is finally wrapped up successfully. The guy jumps 2 levels at once, hitting level 17 thanks to the 60,000 XP points the Empress dropped. He smirks, thinking the XP yield is insane around here, mostly cause he's soloing and doesn't have to split it with anyone. The coolest part is that with the cap break, he wiped out over 600 creatures, securing a monster boost to his total mana. Opening his pack, the guy realizes every slot in his inventory is stuffed with loot, deciding to head to the shop to dump the gear. The portal sound effect echoes again, leaving the temple hunters stunned as they realize the rookie just broke another official record. The elite warrior goes into total denial, seeing a 5-man group took almost 40 minutes while the kid cleared everything solo in half an hour. The system officially confirms that the level 17 necromancer Pluto broke the max difficulty record in just 36 minutes. Pluto pops back out of the glowing portal with the vibe of a true elite master, leaving all the onlookers in the lobby drooling. The hooded hunter gets super hyped, seeing someone break 2 solo records in a single day, something never done before in temple history. He admires the crazy power and rock-solid mind of that mystery kid, who's now walking calmly around looking for the guide Layla. The warrior decides in his mind that Pluto is his ultimate role model, promising to grind his best to one day fight alongside him. He hypedly tells his injured partner he's filled with drive and that they need to go train in another dungeon right away. On the flip side, the injured warrior falls into a deep existential crisis, remembering he lost an eye only to have his record broken in half an hour. Unable to handle the embarrassment, he calls his mom saying he's taking over the family fish market cause the pro-hunter life isn't for him. He keeps walking, hanging his head, adding tragically to his mom that he ended up losing an eye in his failed career process. Meanwhile, Pluto asks Layla where the currency exchange is, but the little witch refuses to take a single coin from him for the info. The The MC gets a bit confused, asking straight up why she won't take his gold payment coins. Hiding her blushing face under her pointed hat, she asks him not to ask, telling him to treat it as a special bonus. She calculates that since Pluto has the golden crystal and smashed 2 records in one day, he's a legendary genius she needs to stay tight with. With a friendly smile, the guide asks the guy to follow her since she'll walk him there personally, and the hero politely thanks her. The two arrive at the sacred temple's elegant trading hall, where several experienced hunters are bargaining over valuable gear. A slick clerk dressed in a suit greets them warmly, asking if the nice duo came by to buy or sell. The clerk scoffs, seeing it's just a level 17 necromancer, assuming the guy couldn't have anything too valuable in his bag. Pluto mentions the table looks a bit small to fit all the items, and the merchant laughs, explaining that magic platform can hold any pile. The MC just nods, starting to summon his whole mountain of gear and loot to stack on the table. The clerk makes a skeptical face, saying he wants to see exactly how much gear that young necromancer managed to bring. That exact second, Pluto's inventory interface glows bright, opening all his item windows. An unbelievable amount of heavy armor and shiny weapons starts dropping onto the platform, piling up into a giant mountain. The guy smirks, seeing the magic table can actually stack everything up perfectly without dropping a thing. The snobby clerk almost has a heart attack from the shock, turning ghost white as he stares at that colossal pile of loot. Desperate, he asks if all those items really belong to the kid, wondering how many dungeons it would take to gather all that. Pluto thinks most hunters split loot in teams, but the shopkeeper swears the guy must be the heir to some crazy rich family. The clerk changes his attitude instantly, smiling like a fool and asking the hero to come back tomorrow so everything can be properly appraised. Pluto agrees to come back the next day, and the guide Layla suggests they take the chance to check out the gear shop right next door. The kid realizes his old gear got outdated, deciding now is the ideal time to get a real upgrade. He agrees with the idea, and the hyped little guide readily offers to lead the way to the temple's main weapon market. Arriving at the spot, the witch proudly shows off the giant variety of armor, and the necromancer thanks her for the help. She points to a slick purple rare tier scythe made custom for necromancers that raises max summon limit by 1. Layla says an extra summon is clutch for the class, but Pluto thinks that Death Scythe would only be awesome for regular necromancers. Since Pluto plans to summon thousands of undead, he decides to keep looking, leaving the guide confused by his total lack of interest. Unbothered, the girl hypedly points to a protected glass display, swearing the guy will definitely find something super useful inside there. Inside the case shines a sweet level 15 amethyst ring that grants a passive 50-point extra mana boost to the user. The young girl explains the accessory is amazing for the class, dropping 50 magic points just for slipping it on a finger. The hero knows that bonus is nothing compared to his legendary ring, and with his cap break, he'll never have mana issues again. He lets out an awkward laugh, saying he doesn't need mana, and the little witch almost falls backward, seeing that even that rare ring didn't impress the guy. Totally shocked, she mutters to herself, not getting how a necromancer doesn't need extra mana or extra summon limits. Hilariously losing her temper, the girl steps up to him, asking out loud what on earth this mystery kid is looking for. The MC says nothing for a few moments, just locking his focused gaze onto a dark, specific corner of the hall. A terrifying, dense mist of dark energy starts flowing from a special display case, releasing scary, dark growls into the air. The dark purple aura seems drawn to Pluto's presence, crawling along the stone floor until gently touching the kid's shoes. The hero whispers. He was drawn subconsciously to that spot, and before he knew it, he was standing right in front of the mystery display case. In the display rests the Underworld King armor, which lets you sacrifice 100 normal summons to create one indestructible elite warrior. Layla catches his interest, asking worriedly if he's really eyeing that forbidden armor that's meant just for display. She explains the piece is useless, cause no summoner in the world can summon 100 soldiers at once to sacrifice them in battle. The guy listens in silence, thinking that summoning and sacrificing 100 monsters at the same time would be impossible for others, but for him, it's a breeze. He calculates that with that armor, he could create elite warriors hundreds of times stronger than his regular soldiers. The MC breaks into a wide, satisfied grin, realizing that legendary item was literally tailor-made for his power. Eyes shining with drive, he states with confidence that he needs to find a way to get his hands on that special display armor. The guide stands in total shock, staring at the guy wide-eyed, unable to believe the crazy ambition of that mystery hunter. Layla stammers out that the item dropped from an ancient beast in a past war, but since the effect was considered super weak, it became shop decor. Pluto gently rests his hand on the display glass, whispering to the armor that it must have felt super lonely trapped in that spot. Through the glass reflection, the hero promises the dark gear that it won't be long before he returns to free it from that prison. He turns to the girl, asking if she knows any way to grab the item, and she responds annoyed, asking how she'd know that. The witch places her finger on her chin thoughtfully, revealing there might be one single way to get the piece, but she's not sure if it'll work. She explains the temple throws an annual tournament, and the grand champion gets the special right to pick any item from the hall as a reward. The girl considers that since everyone always picks the most expensive gear, she's not sure if tournament rules would allow grabbing a decor piece. Pluto flashes a winning smile, saying what's not forbidden is allowed, and that he just needs to win the temple's grand tournament to get it. Layla screams in frustration at how casually he says that, asking if he has any clue about the tournament's crazy difficulty level. She gestures wildly, saying the competition brings together the absolute elite from the country's 5 major guilds, and only the strongest fight. The girl warns that the guild's goal is to recruit and train battle monsters, and becoming champion there in the tournament is harder than reaching the stars. Totally ignoring the guide's drama, the guy locks his gaze on the armor, promising to free it as soon as he takes the crown in the arena. Annoyed at being ignored, she yells, asking if he's even listening, warning that A-rank warriors are the bare minimum, and there are even S-rank geniuses. Pluto turns sideways, looking at the girl coldly, responding that he heard just fine, but asks what that actually matters to him in the end. With a scary purple glow in his eyes, the young necromancer smirks, stating with absolute certainty that his victory is already sealed. Layla slaps a hand to her forehead, lost for words, wondering where all that confidence comes from, and if the kid actually got what she explained. Pluto thinks for a second, asking Layla when the temple tournament kicks off, and the guide hype answers that it's in just 2 weeks. The guy grips his golden crystal, calculating that 2 weeks is plenty of time for him to grind hard and max out his power to the limit. He clenches his fist tightly, feeling his mana's electricity crackle and build up in an insanely aggressive, destructive way. Pluto knows having a high mana cap means nothing for his growth if he can't recharge that magic energy fast. The hero mentions he's heading home to crash and meet Layla tomorrow, leaving the little witch confused by his sudden exit. A bright blue light engulfs the MC's body as he teleports out of the trade hall toward his final destination. Layla stands, mouth open, not getting how he decides to go sleep with just 2 weeks left till the tournament, finding the guy totally unpredictable. Under the starry night sky, the scene shifts to show Pluto's low-key apartment located in the middle of the city's residential district. The young hunter steps out of the shower, drying his hair with a towel, sighing, relieved to finally have time to recharge his energy. But before hitting the sack, he locks his eyes on his system screen, remembering he still needs to check one more crucial detail. The guy summons his trusty elite archer, asking the skeleton how many special skills his class holds overall in the system. With a simple command, the necromancer asks to open the skill panel, and his skeleton minion obeys right away. The screen displays the first 3 skills, ranging from enhanced weakness vision to the powerful destructive magic arrow rain. The 4th power revealed is the star-piercing arrow, which channels mana to deal absolute true damage, ignoring any enemy's defense. Intrigued by the description, the hero asks his elite soldier why he's never seen him use that skill that looks so devastating. The skeleton archer explains that the attack requires a long 3-minute uninterrupted channel time, which is almost impossible to pull off in battle. Plus, he adds that if he caps the energy burn, the projectile size stays too small, cutting down the arena damage drastically. The guy thinks over how the arrow size issue would be easily fixed with his massive mana tank, but the wait time is a fatal flaw. He decides to bench that issue for now, sitting on his bunk bed, knowing he needs to make the most of his rare shot at rest. The necromancer orders the skeleton archer to stand guard in the room keeping watch around, and the minion promptly confirms the request. The kid lays down on the wooden bunk bed, thinking that despite being simple, that old mattress feels super soft and comfortable. He closes his eyes, feeling a sense of lightness and peace he admits he never had the chance to experience in his past life on Earth. Suddenly, distant, rushed voices start shouting, frantically ordering him to wake up once and for all from his sleep. The dark silhouette of a uniformed warrior emerges through a cold fog, yelling for the young recruit to wake up fast for combat. The cap-wearing sergeant rages furiously, asking how he dares sleep on watch, questioning what they'd do if the enemy army hit them. The young Pluto of the past holds his rifle terrified, trying to apologize while hearing heavy earfuls about the danger of sleeping on post. The superior swears the Night Watch isn't just responsible for himself, but for the safety and survival of the whole combat squad. Another comrade in uniform tries to step in friendly-like, asking the boss to give the young guy a break due to extreme exhaustion. He mocks the over-the-top earful, asking if the sergeant wants to pin the whole country's invasion blame on a basic rookie recruit. The leader claps back serious, saying they're in hostile territory getting hunted like dogs, and any slip on watch will get everyone killed. Caleb responds he knows the risks all too well, but reminds him the recruit hasn't slept in 2 days, offering to take over his shift. The kind soldier watches the kid sleeping deep on the cold concrete floor, smiling softly as he says that guy is special. The past MC scratches his head, laughing awkwardly as he answers. He grew up sleeping on the floor, so he's totally used to it. Caleb breaks into a nice smile, revealing that when this terrible war finally ends, he just wants to sleep on a real soft bed. Suddenly, a destructive missile cuts through the sky, dropping at top speed toward the group's camp with a deafening crash. Panic takes over the hero, who watches the scene in slow motion, pupils wide with pure terror from the incoming impact. The military camp gets swallowed by a violent fire explosion that wrecks everything around, taking his friends' lives in an instant. The raging fire consumes the place while the MC watches helpless at the devastating destruction of the spot where his friends were. Pluto snaps his eyes wide, waking up with a start in the middle of the night, heart racing and breaking out in a cold sweat after reliving that nightmare. The faithful skeleton archer on guard next to his bed catches the hero's shock, calmly greeting him and noting he woke up. The guy runs a hand over his forehead, realizing it was just a nightmare, noticing morning already broke and it's time to get back to training. Throwing on his crisp black suit, the necromancer adjusts his tie, ready to face the new day's challenges with absolute lock-in on his goal. Checking his magic panel, he notes satisfied that all his max mana gained in the dungeon is now fully recharged. The young man snaps his fingers, feeling his body and mind are at peak performance, deciding it's time to go all out in battles. Back in the temple lobby, the portal's golden light shines bright, showing top pros from the 5 guilds just rolled in. Local hunters gossip non-stop, commenting on the rumors of the C-rank necromancer who broke 2 records in a single day. Unbothered by the whispers, the guy walks, driven through the crowd, thinking he needs to find the guide Layla to map out his plan. The little witch waves hypedly from the middle of the hall, calling out to the hero out loud so he can spot her easily in the crowd. She suggests they hit the currency exchange hall first to grab the cash from the loot sale, and the hero just gives a slight nod. The girl walks alongside him, asking curious if he asked to meet today just to pull his gold coins out. Pluto looks at the guide serious, asking if there's any dungeon in the area with even more monsters than the spider nest itself. Layla makes a scared face, warning that more monsters doesn't mean more XP, asking why the guy wants to torture himself like that. Sighing defeated, she gives in to his stubbornness, revealing there are indeed dungeons with more creatures, but they're called large-scale rifts. She explains those giant spots hold tens of thousands of monsters on massive maps, where a single run can take dozens of hours. On top of that, the witch holds up 3 fingers to warn that the temple enforces a strict rule requiring a group of at least 3 people to enter. The MC calculates he needs a squad, and Layla considers that it's almost impossible to score a slot in existing groups at the last minute. With a sneaky grin, Pluto looks sideways, commenting that in that case, he just needs to find one more member to round out the trio. Catching the hint, the girl lets out a frantic yell, warning him not to count on her to step into that literal death trap. Pluto offers gold as payment, but Layla snaps back, saying even if she accepted, only a total idiot would join two rookies to go in there. That exact second, the duo cuts the argument short, hearing a shy voice right behind them, turning curious to see who it is. The green-hooded hunter awkwardly raises his hand, asking kind of sheepishly if he could join the squad for the raid. Seeing the guy volunteer, Layla pulls a funny face, thinking to herself that the exact total idiot she just mentioned actually showed up. The young hunter runs over, explaining he overheard they were missing just one member to close the team, asking to be counted in for the challenge. Suspicious, the witch stares at him up close, saying if he wants to join two strangers in a danger like that, he must have ulterior motives. Embarrassed, the guy scratches his nose, confessing with a friendly smile that he does have another special reason for wanting in. Layla points her finger at him, triumphant, yelling out loud that she knew for a fact that Guy was hiding something. The little witch quickly hides behind Pluto, shaking with fear, wondering if that weird dude came to kidnap her. To her surprise, Pluto flashes a smile and accepts the new guy onto the team right away, leaving the girl totally outraged by the call. Pluto explains everyone has their own reasons to fight, and Layla complains, saying he's not scared because he's way too strong of a warrior. She reminds him she's not a combat class, and Pluto calms her down, promising that with him around, no monster or shady hunter will touch her. The young man locks his steady gaze on her, promising with total firmness that he'll never let her get hurt under his guard. Hearing that heroic, protective drop, little Layla goes wide-eyed, her cheeks turning bright red with embarrassment. To cover up her blushing, she pulls her pointed witch hat down over her red face, muttering timidly for him to stop flexing. The hooded hunter points at her cheek innocently, asking what kind of makeup she used to get her face so red. Furious and dying of embarrassment, Layla screams, calling the poor guy a creep, ordering him to stay far away from her from now on. While the two keep bickering, Pluto cuts in, mentioning he's heading to grab his coins, asking if they're tagging along or not. Layla frantically runs after the hero, begging him not to leave her alone in the company of that weird green-hooded hunter. The trio finally steps into the currency exchange hall, walking in silence as they prep to kick off the next steps of their journey. The clerk in the suit spots the MC, running over to welcome him with top-tier friendliness, giving official elite greetings to the hero. He confirms all items were counted, politely inviting the necromancer to head to the VIP room to finalize the gold payout. The rookie stands amazed at the snobby clerk's respect, and Layla points up sarcastically, showing where the sold items were stacked. Not getting it, he asks why she's pointing at the ceiling, and the witch laughs, explaining Pluto's loot pile reached that high. Eyes sparkling like stars, the guy stands shocked at the loot volume, celebrating that he knew he wasn't wrong about Pluto. Pluto comes back with cash in his pocket, thinking his new teammate's hype is weird, while the shop manager waves goodbye happily from afar. The hooded hunter asks if business was wrapped up, and the necromancer confirms, saying the trio can head out on the new mission now. With the three-person squad finally locked, the group's big goal is to pull off a successful raid in a large-scale dungeon. The merchant watches them leave, thinking he's losing his mind, hearing that just 3 rookies are going to try challenging a rift of that scale. Standing before the Black Ice Fortress portal, the crowd gossips surprised, seeing the famous record holder rolling up with just 2 partners. The onlookers swear they're gonna die, but the trio locks eyes on the giant Black Ice Fortress portal looming imposing before them. The panel reveals the spot houses over 2,000 beasts, and Pluto smirks, seeing the monster density is simply perfect. Reading that the Blue Dragon Guild's elite squad took over 11 hours on max difficulty, the hero realizes the scale of the challenge in front of him. The hooded teammate asks which level they should pick, and little Layla screams desperate that they should obviously enter bronze difficulty. Eyes glowing purple, the hero warns bronze rewards are way too low, deciding he's picking max difficulty to crush the record. Layla begs him not to do crazy stuff, saying trying to compete with elite squads from the top guilds in the nation will only bring trouble. Suddenly, a colossal shadow pops up right behind the girl, a deep voice asking who they think they are to challenge their guild. Layla spins around in panic, recognizing that imposing squad belongs to the scary White Tiger Guild's elite squad. Under the lead of Captain Jordan Chase, the squad warriors show up fully armored, ready to beat Blue Dragon's record. The captain stares at the girl with an intimidating look, asking who she said wanted to compete with them, and the little witch answers trembling in fear. Layla gets a shock when she feels the necromancer's firm hand rest on her shoulder to calm her down and pull her out of that high-pressure spot. Pluto stares down the imposing leader face to face, warning with total ice that his three-person team is going to break everyone's record there today. Jordan Chase realizes that's the arrogant necromancer who smashed 2 records yesterday, asking intrigued which squad he belongs to. Pluto coldly answers his group was just formed, and for now only has 3 members on the team. The reveal leaves the White Tiger squad captain in complete shock, unable to believe what he just heard. Jordan Chase bursts out laughing, letting out a super loud, mocking laugh in the middle of the temple's main hall. The other hunters around join the laughter, mocking those 3 idiots who allegedly want to tackle a large-scale raid. While everyone laughs, saying they used connections to get in, Karen gets furious, asking what exactly is so funny about the situation. Giving zero care to the crowd's mocking, the necromancer just turns his back, warning his teammates they shouldn't waste time there. Jordan Chase watches the trio walk toward the portal, letting out a scoff of disdain at the mystery kid's nerve. Feeling ignored, the arrogant captain yells in an authoritative tone, ordering the group to freeze right where they are. Pluto and his buddies stop walking reluctantly, turning around slowly to hear what the big guy still has to say. Jordan Chase notes with disdain that if Pluto and Layla want to commit suicide, he won't stop them, but says there's a catch to the story. He points his index finger firmly toward Karen, stating intimidatingly that the green-hooded kid can't go with them. The captain reminds him he invited the guy to his elite squad, and that he turned down the offer, claiming he wanted to focus on the spider nest. Karen swallows hard, breaking out in a nervous sweat as he realizes the terrifying captain actually remembered their old chat. The leader reveals he lets the rejection slide cause Karen is a rare S-rank pro, saying rolling with those 2 trash cans would be a total waste. The hunters comment that if Karen rejects the invite in public, he's done for in the White Tiger Guild, even being an S-rank warrior. The hooded kid enters a terrible dilemma, knowing he'll be hunted by the guild if he refuses. But he really wants to fight alongside Pluto. Stressing and lost on how to act under that massive pressure, Karen looks at the silent necromancer, asking what he should do. Layla panics, knowing that without Karen, they won't hit the minimum number to enter, whispering begs for Pluto to stop him from leaving. Pluto steps up calmly, mentioning he won't pressure him or let anyone else do it, telling him to just follow his heart. Karen repeats the hero's words in his head, feeling a huge rush of courage and drive surge through his chest that instant. The S-rank warrior takes a deep breath and locks his eyes with total firmness, making it clear he made his final call on the matter. He puffs out his chest, yelling with absolute conviction in front of everyone that he's taking on the large-scale dungeon alongside the necromancer Pluto. Captain Jordan Chase's face darkens instantly, glaring at the guy with a killer look packed with rage from the public snub. Driven by anger, the big guy mutters through gritted teeth that the rookie had a lot of nerve to refuse, adding sarcastically that it's real good. He turns around with a fake smile on his face, deciding to hold back his hate temporarily while planning his quiet revenge. The leader blames Pluto for dropping that fake confidence on the rookies, swearing that even if they survive the rift, he'll make their lives a living hell. He yells, laughing, that in dungeon history, no 3-person team has ever made it out alive from a large-scale rift. Jordan Chase screams for them to enjoy their final moments of life as the trio starts fading slowly inside the dark rift. Pluto looks out of the corner of his eye, glowing purple eyes flashing, responding coldly that they'll be the first to write a new story in that place. The swirl of scarlet energy consumes the 3 heroes' bodies, crossing the portal toward the incoming danger of the frozen fortress. Jordan Chase turns to his group, ordering them to ignore those suicidal fools and focus on locking down first place in the dungeon. The captain raises his heavy axe, ordering everyone to prep for entry, and the warriors respond with a war cry in unison. Crossing the portal, Karen finds that small, wrecked ice cave weird, and Layla stammers out that it's her first time in there too. With his usual calm, locked-in look, the necromancer just ignores the doubts, warning his buddies they need to keep moving forward. Pluto asks if it's true his teammate is an S-rank pro, and Karen proudly confirms he was the only one in his academy class. The hero asks what his exact class type is, and the hooded guy flashes a mystery smile, saying he prefers to show it in action. Layla yells, warning him to be careful not to collapse the ice ceiling, and Karen calms her down, swearing he knows exactly what he's doing. A strong, light green magic energy flame starts popping up around Karen's fist, crackling intense and mysterious in the cave. He proudly reveals his special S-rank class is the Dimensional Ripper, capable of slicing the physical fabric of space itself. With a fast stroke, Karen slashes the air, opening a floating green energy rift that rips open the physical space of the ice cave. Pluto checks out the green energy portal curious, asking what the practical use of those rifts is, and the young guy answers one rift alone doesn't do much. He adds with a sneaky look that the real class secret happens when he decides to open a second rift at another spot on the map. To flex his power, the guy simply shoves his whole arm into the green portal, making his hand vanish into the empty void. Suddenly, his hand pops out of another portal behind Layla, snatching her hat and proving the rifts allow anything to pass through. Karen drops the hat back on her head, laughing, explaining the first rift needs to be manual, but the second he can open wherever he pleases. He reveals satisfied that he can open the second portal outside the dungeon, securing an absolute fail-safe escape route for the trio. He shares he can slice open space to any spot he's seen in a picture, but the longer the distance, the higher the energy drain. Layla connects the dots, complaining he only agreed to go because he could bail whenever he wants, but Karen swears he'll pull his friends along in danger. Karen locks his serious gaze on his buddies, confessing that even without that escape skill, he still would have chosen to team up with them. Karen explains he uses his rifts for tactical repositioning, asking if Pluto's real class isn't secretly S-rank too. Pluto calmly responds his class is just a C-rank necromancer, leaving the new teammate intrigued over how he manages to be so ridiculously strong. The MC breaks into a subtle smile, modestly commenting that for a few reasons, he can just summon a little bit more undead than usual. Karen stares at him in total shock, wondering how a slightly higher limit could make that necromancer a complete monster. The hooded hunter turns to Layla, asking what her class is, assuming from the hat she must be some kind of caster mage. The witch answers with disdain, saying she's just a regular A-rank pro and that there's absolutely nothing special about her power. Karen drops a disappointed sigh, commenting, "That's pretty lame," and Layla gets super furious at his disrespectful comment. Pluto cuts off the small talk, warning there's a bright light glowing up ahead, showing the group is about to exit that cave. Stepping out of the cave exit, Layla and Karen stand totally paralyzed and wide-mouthed before the sheer scale of the large-scale dungeon. Looming before them is a monumental, terrifying frozen fortress stretching across the entire horizon, showing off the real scale of the challenge. The teammates comment uneasy about the place's massive size, while Pluto stays locked in and ready to kick off his real power show. Gripping his staff tight, the MC preps to act, warning mysteriously that things inside are going to be way different. A crazy volume of black smoke and dark energy starts exploding from the hero's body, covering the frozen dungeon floor. Karen and Layla try to shield themselves from the violent wind and magic dark spreading fast in an extremely intimidating way. Amidst the dark gale, the necromancer sarcastically repeats that the number of warriors he can summon is just a tiny bit higher than normal. An endless, monstrous horde of fully armored, heavily equipped skeletons starts marching out of the shadows under the hero's firm command. Staring at that colossal army of thousands of undead, his teammates scream in pure panic, asking what on earth he considers a tiny bit.